I'd like to call the October 30th special meeting to order.
People over there. Go, let's go. Call the meeting to
Can-
order.
I was.
Okay.
Okay, October 30th special meeting of the City Council Chambers. Can we do the roll call, Anthony?
Certainly. Councilmember Holland,
Here.
Councilmember DeGolia, Councilmember Whitmer,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Lewis,
Here.
Mayor Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments? Is there anyone online, Anthony? And there's nobody in here. Okay, so why don't
Ken's
we,
here. Ken.
okay. Can we start with the first item, discussion and preview of the 2025 Town of Atherton Earth Day event?
Yep.
Christabel is going to give a presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you everyone for being here today. I know you've had a lot of meetings lately and I'm sure you're exhausted. I really quickly wanted to use this time to provide an update and also just discuss the Earth Day expectations and then take any direction or feedback that you might have for me. With that, I'm in the staff report, I mentioned just the history of events that the town has participated in Earth Day. I hope I summarized those accurately. I did mention that this year the council did direct that staff take the lead on event planning and organizing and task the EPC with identifying this main highlighting activity for the event. So today we're here mostly again to provide that update and take feedback that you might have in regards to Earth Day. I quickly wanted to update you all on what we've done so far. Just starting the conversation that we've already begun inviting a lot of the vendors, specifically the ones from the previous Earth Day events that we've had a good relationship with and pertain to the theme for the next Earth Day to see if they would be interested in participating. Those include some of our partners like Cal Water and the Bug Lady I did reach out to because that's a very pivotal part of the event. We've also done a save the date in the Fall Athertonian, which I hope you all received and saw. We did post the event on the town calendar and have gotten some questions and interaction around that. We're hoping to do an Eventbrite where people can start registering and then we can start monitoring how many people are RSVPing for the event. That's a little bit more down the line, but that's kind of how that ties into the town
Why
calendar.
do we have an echo?
Too far?
It's difficult to hear what she's saying with the echo. Okay, we're all just sitting here together.
Sorry.
And for the folks online, please let us know if you have any audio issues as well. Also, we've drafted a volunteers frequently asked questions just based on the input that we received from this year's Earth Day event, and also a vendor FAQ or frequently asked questions as well, just to answer some of the questions that we were receiving earlier this year in March and April. We've also done a vendor interest form where we've asked vendors to essentially apply or show interest in participating in the Earth Day event. And that doesn't necessarily guarantee their participation, but it allows us to look at who is interested in participating, what they're looking to offer, whether that be an exhibit, a demo, share informational resources, or sell a product. With that, I do want to mention that we have disclosed the Atherton business license and the San Mateo County health regulations in terms of selling food and drinks. On top of that, we've also added and extended a list of vendors that the EPC and Amy, as the chair of the EPC, has shared with me based on ideas that I've been getting and emails that I've been receiving. So that's helped create a draft list of vendors that we are inviting to this event. With that, we're also looking at volunteer recruitment and management. I think that's going to be the second biggest lift aside from vendors is volunteer recruitment and management. We're hoping to kick that off in December and January, doing recruiting at the schools, the local universities, colleges, high schools, and all of that. And then figuring out how to manage that and divide tasks up for next year. So if you have any experience with volunteer management or any feedback for me, I'm happy to take that. That's kind of the direction that I'm heading to next. So in the staff report, I highlight a few things that we need to consider for the success of the event. One of them was the budget considerations, is that we only have $10,000 to spend. I believe this, I keep saying last year, and I'll shift between last year and this year only because of the previous and after. But for this past Earth Day event, half of our budget was spent on the rentals for chairs, tables, and a few canopies. And then the bug lady that took up a big chunk of the budget. And so keeping the budget in mind, being mindful of that budget is going to be really important because I'm already expecting half of that to be eaten up by those repeated costs. Go ahead.
I said that the budget is consumed by the cost of the tables and chairs and something else.
Yeah, to repeat for the online.
Oh, that's why you can hear me, because it's not on.
So to repeat for the online folks, Councilmember DeGolia asked about the budget and the rentals being, taking up a large part of that. Aside from the rentals, it was also the bug lady. I can't remember. The bug lady, she did the exhibit. Yes. The bug lady did the exhibit of different bugs and insects on
The
display.
bug lady took up as much of the budget as the chairs and table rentals?
No, the rentals and the bug lady combined eat up almost half of the budget.
I see.
I would have to look at the past Earth Day budget for that. Oh, perfect. Anthony could probably speak on those numbers. I don't know how accurately those are going to be reflected for the next year.
So the bug lady is the most expensive, one of the most expensive. Why don't we consider that be a last minute addition and see what else we want to add in? As opposed to let all the money go to the bug lady.
I agree.
Okay.
If I could just add a little bit onto that.
I
My,
really disagree.
well, but my take, that's really, if it's a significant amount of money, it either should be someone sponsoring her in some way, shape or form or part of it. And it's not just, you know, if she's so important to the event, but she's so expensive, I mean, it seems out of line.
300 the first year. So let's get perspective what we're talking about. It was $300 the first year. Last year, she raised her price because the first time we only had her for a short period of time, and then we didn't pay her for the whole day. This time she wanted to be paid for the whole day. I don't think it's expensive considering the things. that
Well,
we're
how much
talking
is
about.
it?
So
Gonna look it up. It's more than 300. I know that.
she's $1,200 and this, so she's the Beetle lady. It was $1,200 combined with the rental of the parked bikes, which was 2,000. And then the table and chairs came in at around 1,800 to 2,000. So if we add the Beetle
Wow.
lady, the bike valet and tables and chairs, that really is around
The
$5,000.
bike valet was the one thing, it ended up being very well used, but I think that if we were to do it again, that we should try to do a volunteer. So I don't think the bug lady, which was one of our key things, should be the first, in my opinion, that'd be one of the last thing we throw out. What they're thinking of this year, the theme is animals. So all the more reason to have the bug lady with her, you know, things that she has. It's a very good show and it's good for its price. We were looking into, and Christabel's looking at, the zoo has a mobile show, but they went out of business after COVID. So they're not bringing their mobile show. There's one at the Junior Museum. Dorothy gave us the name of another one, which is about $550 for a 45-minute Falcon show. And the EPC is going to go to, the subcommittee is going to go look at the Raptor Fest and see how much they charge. So we're trying to find alternatives, but I don't think that we should consider getting rid of the bug lady. She's one of our best things.
Have we gotten an estimate of what her fee will be for this year? Because it was 300 one year and then went up to 1,200 the
Right,
next
it
year.
wasn't, Diana misspoke. It was $800 the first year.
Oh, 800.
And then it went up to $1,200.
1,200, okay.
I'm very
So
cool.
it-
I know stuff like this memorized in my very important part of
Thank
my
you,
brain.
But anyway, so it could go up to another
Yeah, it could, but I
1,800 or
think-
2,000.
I think the point being though is
Yeah.
that our hours changed. And so her price reflected us going from a
That's right.
4-hour obligation to a full day obligation.
That's
So
right.
Well, that
she
makes
didn't-
sense. yeah.
Right. So it wasn't a like wild inflation thing. It was our contract changed
Got
because she
it.
was there all
So we
day.
need to manage our time
So-
better.
Yeah. And I would say the Beetle lady, we don't have to use her again. What she did was provided an anchor for the kids' activities. And so, and it's an excellent, large, very cool display. So I think having an anchor for the kids is important. I think you guys can use your discretion on what the kids' anchor should be is my,
So I would,
I also have a database of kids vendors from my very cool preschool life that I have. So petting zoos and whatever.
Bill?
well, I was waiting for it. I would eliminate the bike corral with the bike coalition. I thought they were expensive and I don't agree with you that, yes, people brought bikes, not a ton of people. And what they charged, it wasn't the value. And so I would eliminate that. And that brings back a couple $1,000, if I remember right. That was one of the more expensive items.
That was $2,000 and so. Yeah,
$2,000, so,
and
you
we've
know.
discussed finding alternatives internally already.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Find alternatives or
I'm
disband it.
surprised we're all discussing this level of detail at this meeting, so.
What are you
I'm
expecting
surprised.
to be discussing?
I don't know. I thought,
We should
okay.
let staff say what they're
Okay.
asking for.
Sure. I thought we were getting a report on what the EPC's special sauce
Well, the
was.
EPC didn't meet yet. And so I don't
Maybe
know
let's
what
let
we're
Well,
going to
it's
discuss.
discussion
I
and
don't even know-
direction
I don't even
regarding.
know why we're having this because the EPC hadn't even met. And we're supposed to hear what they want to do. Yet it showed up on the agenda.
I'm sure there's a request from staff.
Yeah, so I quickly want to respond to Councilmember Holland and Whitmer's comments about the kid-centric activity. I think that's a really good idea, and we have looped in or started conversations with the library about being able to put on what they do, their community events, kind of how you saw at the Halloween event. They had the magic showcase, and at our previous events, they've been able to bring live music. It's something that the library can offer, and it's something that we've already started talking about. Nothing concrete has come out of that, but we're hoping to have the library contribute to the kid-centric activities.
Can I ask a question? How does that loop in Earth Day?
For the library,
Well, the activity, yeah.
it would be an activity centered around the theme.
Yeah, usually what they do is coloring that's, environmentally
Mhm.
themed. One of the things to ask them is that there are countywide and statewide shows, and they may have a show on endangered species or something that's more environmental that they're going to use at other places. And if we can get on the cycle for it to be here would be great.
Yeah, I
And
guess,
if
just
I-
as long as
It's
it's
themed.
themed
It's
for Earth
usually-
Day and not
Exactly.
just
They bring
music
their
or something.
books,
Yeah.
like they bring their book cart and they'll put the books. So this year our theme is animals. So I'm sure the book cart will be full with animal books. So.
Exactly.
it's-
So
they
in
do
years
theme.
past, we've engaged the library as staff to ask them to provide books, activities related to the theme.
Yeah.
We intend to have that same discussion and planning session with the library as we get a little closer to the end of the year.
The library is a great community event partner for the town.
Absolutely.
They bring folks,
Oh,
they bring
absolutely.
kids'
I'm not saying
activities.
that they're not at all. I mean, we know that for,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so they'll curate those books that they'll put on display. And even in this year, they gave books away that were related to the
Yeah.
theme.
That was nice.
Should see if they can
So-
bring that cave
ahead, Bill.
thing.
Yeah.
Last year, we had a bunch of stuff for ADAP, putting out fires and other things. I just don't see how that's related to Earth Day.
In my opinion, because we have increased incidences of emergencies and weather incidences. So it's directly related. That's why it's related. And these are part of our community partners. So we have the art department, we have the ADAPT. Those are our community partners. I don't know if the seniors are going to do anything, but
Well, okay, well,
community partners
I
come.
feel that on Earth Day, we should be focusing on things that affect the environment. Excuse me. And showcase vendors who also provide activities and maybe assessments and things like that. Our focus should be those things as opposed to putting out fires. I don't see first off, you're starting a fire and it's creating carbon emissions, so it's not helping the environment, by the way.
well, there's an increase of wildfires as a direct result of climate change. So there's a lot of interest in,
I'm willing to say my position.
okay,
my thought.
all right.
I just don't think.
And just
it's okay.
again, as
Yeah.
staff, we're welcome to take that direction back about the types of vendors that we should be engaging to make sure it fits in terms of the theme. Christabel and I have had some internal conversations about how the setup may be impacted based on the vendors we invite. So as an example, we might have a community partner setup where it's ADAPT and PCE and some vendors that may not totally relate to this year's theme, but we still want to give access to this large community engagement thing. And this is why we're here to solicit that type of feedback from our
Well,
council.
PCE does.
So we'd like to not only present our plan and what we're looking to do, but we'd also like to get direction from council on if you support that plan, if you have any specific direction on how you'd like to see it changed. For example, we got direction directly at this past year's event that some folks didn't seem to like the new setup. They preferred it around the lawn and they didn't like the setup where it was broken up. So if you have that type of direction, we'd love to receive that today as well.
Like
I
the,
think it would be helpful, well, I want to give you.
Yes, please.
But it would be very helpful if you have some questions for us, otherwise you're going to continue to get this free-for-all responsive.
here comes Amy.
Perfect, thank you. I will quickly address two of Widmer's comments and then allow Amy to come in and hopefully chime in a bit. The first one about the bike valet, we have been looking into parking solution options because parking is going to be a
Amy.
challenge the day of Earth Day. We started looking at renting just the valet racks and not the service of offering valet biking and potentially having volunteers manage that. We haven't really flushed that out, but that's something that we're considering. But we are looking at options for supporting the parking challenge of Earth Day. The second point about inviting town partners, committees, and affiliated groups. We did have this conversation internally and maybe George can speak to it a bit more, but because this is such a big town event and something that I believe we've been priding ourselves on annually of this community event that we get to put on, it's an opportunity to invite our partners and get committees involved and engaged with the community on the theme for Earth Day. Yes, it should be centered around that theme, and ideally, whoever's involved is tailoring their tabling experience to that theme. But it does allow the committees, commission, subcommittees, affiliated groups an opportunity to get involved in community events like this and just foster that community building. I guess this could pose a question to you, whether you want the planning commission, who is not so environmentally focused, involved in Earth Day events. Do you,
No,
that,
I
just
don't-
for an
I
example?
don't see how they would be applicable.
She's using that as an example. ADAPT, for example, or another.
Yeah,
community group,
ADAPT.
The Atherton Arts Foundation or something.
So let me jump in here. I think we have some consistent partners on Earth Day, which have been the Art Foundation, which has been the Beetle Lady. That's a very attractive and popular activity along with the library. ADAPT was engaged, as the mayor indicated, because they're an environmental, they're not an environmental group, sorry. ADAPT was engaged because they provide emergency resources in the community. And they're actually a great source of volunteers and a great source of folks to come to the event, staff the event, help with parking if we need it, help with organization if we need it, along with the chiefs, volunteers on patrol. So these are all community agencies and groups that we invite naturally. The Planning Commission is probably one of those outliers that probably doesn't have anything, but Park and Rec, we're talking about the playground. Maybe they table at the event and they talk about the park playground project or gather community input on that. And not the Audit and Finance Committee, unless we want to talk about the budget, that's very dry. So they probably wouldn't be there. But I think the intent of this presentation today was to have the secret sauce that the EPC was going to have for the council to talk about, but they're not quite there yet. So we're using this opportunity to just provide an overview of what's going on with Earth Day and where we are, just to give the council some assurance that, hey, we're working on it. It's October, November, and the event is in April. We're already starting that planning for the activities and events of the day. But Amy can probably chime in on, make sure you turn your mic on what the EPC's perspective is on some of those activities.
Yeah, sure. Well, sorry I'm late. Great to see everybody. I wanted just to mention on ADAPT, I think George makes such a good point because, we want to help get people to make some connections between the environment and climate change. And ADAPT is there to respond during floods and fires in addition to earthquakes. And that's directly related, as we're seeing in Spain yesterday, North Carolina. So just helping people make those connections at home as opposed to just watching it on the news. So I loved having ADAPT and the mayor bringing ADAPT in last year. So we've met, and I think we love the fact that Christabel has taken such a proactive role in reaching out to partners from the last 2 or 3 years. I think our initial thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but we heard that the Earth Day theme was going to be nature related and biodiversity before they came out with a theme, Our Power, Our Planet, which is to me a little bit more activism related, which isn't the tone of our event. Our event is education and action, but not activism. So I still like the idea of nature and biodiversity just because of the friendly and open partners for children. And we've noticed time and time again that children are a massive draw because then they bring the parents and the grandparents. So I think even just indicating to our partners, if you happen to have anything that falls within biodiversity, ecosystems, nature, insects, what have you, that could be really helpful. So that's why we were leaning towards that theme. One of my esteemed colleagues constantly reminds us that what is the purpose of this event? And I think we've all come back to this is a gathering. It's a celebration for our community, and there's educational elements, but it's not the same way when we have like the electric leaf blower event that Ken and I had organized that really teaches from a practitioner point of view, how someone can use those. This is more education, a little bit of show and tell, and a celebration and a fun time to get together. So that's kind of where we've gone with our thinking. I don't know, Ken, if I'm missing anything. We want to provide oversight with guidance on themes. I'm working more and more in sustainability than my real job. And so, it's just so important that we get people to look at some of the positives and some of the solutions as opposed to all the doom and gloom. So a celebration like Earth Day gives you a reason to think about, what the next generation is going to hopefully get us out of these pickles. So I can't think of anything else, but so happy to take any suggestions.
My comments, you really summarized the essence of the ideal of what it is about and the celebration and all the technology and how we can move the needle a little bit, so thank you. I love that.
Well,
perspective.
building off the shoulders of giants. I mean, you who did it for so many years. So I will also add that we did brainstorm about some of the other events that have been super successful, like the movie. And we talked about an art show, but I think given the experience of the last 2 years, we thought if we were going to do an event like that, have it within Earth Month. So there is such a thing as Earth Month, the whole month of April, and we partner so well with the library or other organizations. So we just thought we don't want to lose those events, but it's a lot to undertake on one day. So I just want to mention we haven't lost sight of the film, which I know went really well in prior years.
Amy, could you talk a little bit about, there's an excursion maybe coming up, you and Ken or somebody are going to go to Raptor Day?
Oh, yeah, we heard about that from the mayor, right?
No, at our last meeting, we talked about it. I
Okay.
didn't know about it. I think Ken.
Oh,
was
Ken
one
found
of
it.
those.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the background of that is that the theme is biodiversity. So we're looking at what could we do that would be an actual demonstration about animals and species and all of that. So we went down that path, and Ken was talking about owls and owl boxes. And then we talked about birds of prey. And then Ken pointed out Raptor Fest. I went on and bought the tickets, that's all.
Okay,
But
okay.
anyway, it's free, by the way, if anybody wants to go to Raptor Fest. It's happening not this weekend, but next. And it is
Day and
a,
time?
pardon me?
The day and time, November 16th. November 16th, 9:30.
Yeah, 9 to 2.
Down in San Jose or something?
Yeah, it's in some park. It's put
It's
on
Santa
by
Clara
the-
County Park. I'll share it with the group.
But is the hope to kind of connect that to Earth Day in some way?
Yeah, when we started out with owls, and I think the connection there is if you use pesticides to kill the rats, and we know in Menlo Park and Atherton, we have a ton of roof rats, and a bird of prey or anyone else, any other animal eats that, they're going to sadly bleed out. That's how the rat poison works and die. So we thought just making people aware of these awesome animals. And then the raptor fest, I think Ken, you had found. And then I had the chance over at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay to meet someone there who had a raptor that was being used to scare away the little birds that come and eat off your plates at that outdoor eating area. And he suggested we go through UC Davis. And I think we have the name of the organization, but I don't know that we've reached out yet to a contact. But they could do something similar as last year, where they brought some of their grad students and they could talk about the program that they have for raptors. So that was just our initial brainstorm.
Great.
There's a few other places that offer this kind of show. The Junior Museum offers one, and then Dorothy gave us one that is for hire. It's $550. Maybe that's where that number came in my head. And they do a 45-minute and it's all about birds, and they do the similar kind of demonstrations. But the one that's going on in Raptor Fest sounds like it's outside, and it sounds like I don't know that they would do it with a lot of people because they're limiting the number of people that come. So I don't know anything about this. This was, Ken suggested it, and we are trying to find physical demonstrations that would be fun and accessible, and then they can tell the story of how it links in.
Yeah, and
So
visually,
that's where we were.
the one
starting.
at the Ritz-Carlton, it's on a chain, but it's on the person's arm, and it only flies up maybe 5 feet, and all those birds see it, and believe me, they scatter. And so I don't think it would be nervous around crowds because they're using it in that type of a setting. So, and he was affiliated with Fish and Wildlife, I think, and it had been a rescued animal, and then he trained it. And so just learning about that, I thought was pretty cool, and I think kids would love it.
Yeah, that
Well,
sounds
I have
like
a-
it would be a good idea.
If I could ask Amy a follow-up question about, so how often does the bird have to scare away the little birds? I mean, is it, just a one-time thing and then the little birds never come back? Or is it like daily or hourly?
was
or
like
every 4
hourly.
hours or something?
Hourly, those little birds
Yeah,
were
right,
intense.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I
It's
don't
a-
see the practicality in like our environment.
It's an education opportunity for, the people interested in biodiversity and species and.
Right,
More, I guess, to see,
Yeah.
to see it.
yeah.
Not so much to act in its job or its role
Got
to
it.
scare away birds. It was more to me surprising that a hotel would hire
Yeah.
a bird to do that sort of work.
Hmm.
And actually, the educational side, at least I found it fascinating. And
That
think
the
other
birds would be
people-
scared of a big bird?
no, I guess just he talked about it was a red hawk, I guess. So he talked about where it is from and the age, and that by 5 months it's already full grown,
Yeah.
which I didn't know. So if you had somebody, and I'm guessing the UC Davis grad students would probably be able to talk about, usually they're up so high, we don't really connect with them. So, and then if even then there was a table with some information on different types of pest control measures we can use in Atherton, so our residents just make that,
Connection.
Yeah.
Sure.
Another point of contact for birds of prey is the landfill, actually, because they used birds of prey to scare away other birds and rats and things from their landfill areas.
Well, I think that the kids as well as adults would be interested in seeing the birds somewhat up close
Mhm.
and understanding, you can get an owl head, a house pretty quickly, how to put it up, where to put it. And, it does the pest control as well in your yard or by your garden and things like that. So I think that's a great idea.
So I have a question about the owl houses. What kind of maintenance is there, ongoing maintenance? You just put it up
An
and
owl
forget about
house?
it? Do you have one?
When they
Yes.
depart, when the owls
At your
depart,
house?
you should clean it out
We have
and then
to.
put new fluff in.
No, see,
No, they're just providing commentary.
Do they?
I can
I
cut it
don't,
off.
that's not my understanding, but I could be
Um,
wrong.
Learn about it at Earth Day, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they should learn about it.
Well,
Educational
I
shows.
wanted to say thank you for that engaging conversation on this one topic. This is a really good example of how the EPC is coordinating these ideas for these main highlighting events or key exhibits or demos to be featured at Earth Day, but also showcase how we haven't quite been to that Raptor Fest to speak on it. We haven't closed the circle on any big ideas for this main highlighting activity, nor have we been able to have an official EPC meeting due to quorum issues to discuss it, but the conversations are happening. And you right now just participated in some of that feedback, which thank you so much. Amy and I are probably going to walk away with that. But that's one of the examples of what the EPC is doing to provide this main highlighting activity. I have had a check-in with Amy, and we're hoping to have monthly check-ins to continue to discuss this and continue to update the EPC as well. But at that, we did talk about maybe using the potential list of vendors and who we have signed up for the event to provide one of those highlighting activities, if they can offer that, whatever that is, whether it be the Department of Fish and Game. Could they provide a great demo or exhibit that could become the main highlighting activity of the event? We don't know yet. That's another route that we're considering in addition to these conversations.
Like, for example, the Raptor Fest is being put on Peninsula Open Space.
Yes.
So they're a potential source to work with us and maybe even
Yeah.
help pay for it. So
And they're on our list of people to reach out to as well. I think a lot of the organizations mentioned are on our list of vendors.
So one thing that you might explore, the committee might explore is, I know that there was, and George can be specific about this, a frog up in the channel, up in the
Yeah,
Atherton
the frog.
Channel.
Yes,
Yes, the
that's
red-legged
right.
frog.
Fish and Game was
Yeah.
very focused on. And that might be interesting
that'd be super
to residents
interesting.
to know
The
something about
red-footed
that.
frog.
I love that idea. I can just see a super fun nursery school activity where you could put on a frog hat or have a frog stamp or something if you came to that table to learn about the
Very
frogs.
cool.
I think that's a great
Very cool.
idea.
That was something that was already mentioned to us, and we thought of incorporating that in a way that we could display what the town has done in terms of the theme and educate the community on the Atherton Channel. And is the frog an endangered species? Is that what it was? Yeah, so providing education on that to the local residents that may not know about it and turning that educational information into a potentially fun activity.
We've talked
My-
about engaging the youth council to help with that project, or maybe one of the other youth groups like the Boys and Girls, the Boy Scouts,
Yeah,
the
so
Boy
we
Scouts.
follow
So we
up
had
with-
some of those conversations to see the best path to move forward with that.
I'm glad you said that, Anthony, because we had promised last year to follow up with the Boy Scouts. So we have the head lady of about 5 different groups. And if we give them a lead, they will do stuff. They're very
And
active.
they
and
want to
wanna
do something
take-
to help, right?
Yes, last year they
So
did a
the
water
bike corral.
exercise.
Let the Boy Scouts manage the bike corral. We probably don't need to rent or pay for anything, that we have assets.
Yeah, great.
I think.
Yeah.
I think if we can get them early on, I
Yeah.
think they would be really
Yeah, I'd reach
excited
out.
to do that.
Yep.
What
And
what you want to do is get an Eagle Scout candidate. They have to put a project together and they have to manage the project. So there's 2 or 3 troops. So the Atherton, so I would go
Yeah,
talk
if-
to those and try and find out if they have any Eagle Scout candidates and talk to the Scoutmaster about, this would be a great idea for them.
Okay.
the other one, given the theme this year, is the 4-H Club. And I tried to reach them the last few years, and I think I have an email, but I didn't get very far with them. But given what our theme is this year, that might be a good one, because they will also do projects. And they would maybe do something right on the theme, the kids will, and they can bring their animals and talk about stuff too. So
So I have a question. As far as vendors coming to sell their wares and market their goods or art or something, is that really necessary? You know?
It's not necessary, but some vendors do. I mean, for instance, we've had vendors who talk about heat pump systems and other things, and they do sell their opportunities there, and vendors that produce honey or produce other things with their bees and such, so.
And it just
Not
seems like it's
necessary, but
another,
happens.
flea market or farmer's market.
It's not a driving
Yeah.
desire for vendors to do that.
You didn't used
I
to do
think
that,
I think
years
that's a fair
ago.
comment, that I think we should limit the vendors, but if there's somebody that's really relevant
Yeah.
to Earth Day, like I
The
think
heat
Harvest
pump or
Thermal
something,
was
yeah.
the
Mhm.
company that had heat pumps, that's
That's
very
not what I'm
relevant.
talking about.
No,
I'm
you're talking about
You know,
people that are selling doodads.
But the doodads, I will, in defense of that, not that I want to be defending it, but the idea is that we need to change the way we buy things, and we need to change whether we need to stop using plastic wraps. We need to and a lot of the vendors were people that were selling bags that you take to the store so that we can get out of plastic. So there were vendors that were focusing on a transition where we're not buying individual use, but we're buying big containers of stuff. So these are changes in the way we as a culture have to change over time.
But I
And a
don't
lot
think
of
we
people
should do
haven't even
that at
seen
our
it.
Earth Day. You can go to Costco for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should have people selling stuff.
Maybe we
I
could
really
just suggest having a vetting process of not having a million vendors, but like the bee stuff was the Bee Guild and they're selling their honey that they made from keep taking care of bees. So I thought that they're connected and it was cool and people were having fun buying candles and honey. I think you're talking about the Birds Filling Station is what you're mentioning, which is a new business in San Mateo County that allows you to buy bulk items. And they were promoting their new business so that people could go skip Costco and buy bulk. So I think there's a middle ground between supporting our the things that we have locally that people wouldn't otherwise know about. I don't know if it's necessarily selling stuff here at our Earth Day, but I think maybe we trust the EPC to not have it be a flea market and instead
a lot of
be
these vendors
refined.
are not local. I mean, they kind of go around and do these as part of their,
Yeah, so maybe you
livelihood.
guys are being a little picky.
We can be
About
discretion.
it.
We can use
Yeah,
some discretion.
For sure. I think
Yeah.
we've already had a discussion about staying away from another farmer's market feel.
Mhm.
We thought this is education. It's not necessarily, we didn't want to encourage people. And I know we also have the 1-day permit that you have to get to do business in Atherton, which is a barrier of entry. So I think we can brainstorm how we approach the vendors, but I agree, if it's a heat pump, oftentimes you can just use the code and buy it on your phone and then have it delivered later, as opposed to having people carrying around things, with cash transactions.
They weren't
So,
selling heat pumps.
Oh, they weren't?
Harvest
Okay.
Thermal wasn't selling
They're
anything. They were just
promoting.
talking about their solution.
got
That's
it.
different than selling. I
Yeah,
don't think we should have anybody selling
I
anything.
agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Well, if I had a voice, that's how I agree also. I mean, with that.
Did we have them sell from Ace last year, or were they just displays?
Just display.
Okay,
So, I mean, that's very distinct direction from the council. If you want no vendors to be able to sell any item, we need to know that now, going into reaching out to folks to come. Because some folks won't come if they can't also sell their honey or things like that.
People we don't want.
I think it's fine if the committee determines there's people that are appropriate in terms of what they offer, but they shouldn't be selling there. And if they don't come because they will only come if they sell, then they shouldn't come.
Is that,
I think the Bee Guild should be allowed to sell honey. And that's how they raise their money to.
I know,
teach
but you
people
could,
about
nonprofit.
you could go buy their honey at the farmer's market.
That's different from the guild. Those are professional beekeepers. The
Yeah.
Guild are just hobbyists who are doing it because for the love of the bees and that offsets.
So how much
their-
money
It's a
do you think they would
nonprofit.
make selling their honey in that one day?
just
I
direction?
don't think a lot. I just think. it's a nice
500,
through line.
200,
You're learning about bees and you get to buy honey.
2,000, you know?
They give
I
out
think
honey
people enjoy
samples.
buying the honey. I think people enjoy leaving with the plants. We give those away, but I mean, it's fun to have things. and
Well,
bring
yeah,
them
if
up.
you're
So,
giving
well,
something
if you're
away,
giving it
that's
away, good.
different, yeah.
Another way to do
Uh-huh.
it is to say there's no on-site sales from
Mhm.
vendors. You could do QR codes, as Amy mentioned,
Mhm.
go to their website, buy it from that location.
Yeah.
Go to their storefront if they have a storefront. If the idea is not to have wares on the table that are being transacted,
Right.
just do it,
Well, they can have wares on the table, they just can't sell them.
right, they can't be transacted in town.
And I think it's a really good idea to make it super clear up front to the vendors. We did have two vendors that shocked us. One had a massive display. I think it was also a zero waste store, but down from San Jose, and was selling a lot of things. And then we had a food vendor who showed up kind of unannounced that was trying. So I think if we make it super clear that the only people selling, I guess, would be the food, right?
Mhm.
That it would be easier to communicate across the board to all vendors.
Yeah, and they could do remote transactions, but they just can't transact on site.
I just wanted to also add that, and hopefully Amy and or Ken can chime in here on the perspective of the EPC, but what I took away is that people would want to walk away with items, whether that's free or bought. It seems like that was an interest from the EPC and something to consider. Also mentioning that we have already begun reaching out to vendors, especially the big ones that we want to invite again, disclosing that if they do sell any products, it would require an Atherton business license. And if they do sell any food or drinks, that would have to comply with San Mateo County health regulations.
I thought we just said we weren't gonna be selling anything other than food.
So this is for the vendors that we've already reached out to before today's meeting. So I would have to clarify that with the vendors.
He's selling at the thing.
If that's we can do that if that's the direction of the
Is there a
council.
consensus on that?
There has been, yes.
Seemed to think so.
Yep, there was.
We have 3-2, so yes, 3-2.
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
it could be handled in such a way as and that to not offend the vendors. But I just feel that it makes the Earth Day not so commercial. And what we're trying to do is educational, informative, bring people's awareness to Earth Day and not just as consumers.
I agree with that. And I felt like last year there was a commercial
Yes,
overtone
Which
that
I-
wasn't good.
yeah. It made me feel bad.
And if they have some handouts, so I know some of our utilities, I think Green Waste had some handouts. There are
Mhm,
handouts
yeah.
that are free. So,
Well, they're already paying for Green Waste, so Green Waste isn't selling anything.
yeah. Yeah.
They could package up some of my garbage and, give it away.
Okay, I do, to Christabel's point, I do recall that we had a conversation about selling items on the spot. So apologies, Christabel, if you already communicated with some of the vendors.
We can walk that back, direction of the council. That's all fine. All right, well,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, I have a
Input,
question.
yeah.
Is there a plan for presentations? Because some Earth Days, we've had focused presentations,
Like speakers talking
Yeah.
about, like,
particular issues.
It was the birds or the animals.
Yeah,
The bird thing.
Yeah, we weren't thinking about doing that. We tried, I don't remember 2020. Oh yeah, 2022, you had a series of speakers and it was really
it
well
was-
attended. I
it
remember.
was in the,
In the pavilion?
house,
In
In the
main
house,
in the
yeah.
main house.
And I
Uh-huh.
attended those. It was amazing. The woman from SFO was incredible. The lab grown meat was incredible. The only thing I would say is it does require both a lot of upfront organization, which would fall on staff, and then additional corralling of people, which fails in the 2023, given the size, to get them.
23, we were at MA.
Yeah, and we had speakers there too. We had a co-author from the IPCC report. She wrote on water stress. She's at UC Santa Cruz. And I think there were like 7 people in the room. So, it's hard to get sometimes unless it was set up the way it was in the main house. And I think a lot of people, I think I volunteered that first time, were trying to get individuals to come and sit down, and that room was packed because it's also smaller. So I guess I would actually ask staff if they have the bandwidth to do something like that. And again, we could provide some guidance and suggestions on speakers, but it would be coordinating them and reserving those rooms and setting up the chairs. And it just is more administrative work for sure.
I'd also say if you do it, make sure you have signage both on the actual building and on billboards with specific time starts, because at the event at the high school,
Hmm.
the speakers couldn't find the room. There were speakers that missed their talks because they couldn't find the room. And it was really hard. There was no signage. So
Yeah,
ours is more centrally located.
right.
And if you have
But-
something that says speakers and then the sandwich boards and then have the announcer announce it.
That's
But
a-
you
that's
do,
a really
you do
good-
have to corral people. And we did,
good
to get
point.
that room full of people, we did have students, we had our volunteers go around and tell people, the talks are starting to get people over there. But yeah.
We can look into that.
I would only have a couple,
Yeah,
because people are gonna be bringing their kids there. And the kids aren't gonna really wanna be sitting in on in-depth speech. And you don't wanna have a speaker come and be soured and choose never to come again because 7 people showed up. Okay, people are going there, they're gonna be looking at the exhibits, they're gonna go where the bird is, or the goats versus lawnmowers and all, whatever else we're doing. And so I would have the speakers early in the day and just put that on the announcement that, at whatever time, we're gonna have, 2 half-hour or 2 1-hour slots, and that's it.
No,
I
1
wouldn't
hour.
have
To rehash-
Speakers.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think you're gonna get all the people.
To rehash Amy's earlier point about Earth Month, we have had conversations about a movie or a speaker series or presentations. And we think, given the logistical challenges, if we were to introduce an activity like that, we would do it as a part of an Earth Month theme where we can host it independently, not at the park, maybe in a room like this, market it separately outside of Earth Day, but still have it in line with it. Maybe even use it to lead up to promoting Earth Day as an example, if that was something that.
that's a good idea. And if they're notable environmentalists, you've got to get a name recognition. It's just not, maybe a professor from Stanford who may in his own right be, or her own right be really good and infamous, but, a notable speaker. So people would, oh, I want to go hear what they have to say and make a
Well,
point of it.
We didn't have big name in 22. I
It
think in
was-
both 21 and 22, we had pretty good attendance, but I wasn't advocating that you
Mm-hmm.
guys do speakers. I was just asking the question if you were planning it.
Or you could have a movie. We had movies a couple of years
I thought
ago.
the movies were
And the
good.
movies were very good.
Movies are
Okay.
good.
The.
And at the PAC Theater,
Yeah,
it's
and the theater
performing
over
arts.
at MA was
Yeah.
probably a third to a
Mhm.
half full.
That's a lot of people because that seats 400. Yeah,
Yeah, it
If
did,
you-
it wasn't full.
if we could do that leading up to it, it also gives us some marketing runway to get people excited about Earth Day.
Yeah.
I will say there's a topic that was raised recently by some of our friends from the Menlo College Business and the Environment Club. As you know, they've participated in like the last 3 Earth Days. And they're interested in a panel on nuclear, which I believe our former EPC chair
It's very involved.
was very
with.
involved, Valerie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were bringing that up just in light of, cooling for server, what are they called? The large data centers. And so, yeah, they brought that up as something that I haven't had a chance to talk to Ken about, but if we could engage that club, maybe they could take on some of those responsibilities, whether it's that topic or another one, but that one's contentious. So I think a lot of people would show up.
Yeah, and it's current. I mean, it's a really, current.
Valerie is very knowledgeable about it, but she just can't be pushing her fun.
Right.
It can't be a money-making
Why-
thing. It's the same as selling.
So we weren't bringing that up.
The other thing I thought probably is relevant to discuss is where you're going to do it, because last year it wasn't around the park area, it was around the main house area and the pavilion. Personally, I thought being around the park was nicer. And now that we've finished the work that we had on the park, which made it a problem last year, it would be easier to do that.
I agree. People like the lawn.
Are you referring to the entry lawn that we used at this year's Earth Day event? Or the larger lawn?
The big lawn.
The big long
main
out
lawn.
front.
The main lawn with
Oh.
the.
Yeah, the stuff that was
I
on the
can send you the
side.
map from
You
2022.
didn't know what was there. People missed that walking over to where the little patio was on the side.
And
It was
that's,
just
that's
kind
sort
of
of how
out
the
of the box.
National Night Out evolved too also.
Yeah.
And I think there was some discussion that everybody liked the way the National Night Out
Felt on the
venue
lawn.
was back on the big lawn. Yeah.
That is where we were anticipating having it. There hasn't been discussion of any other locations, so it's good to know that that's the one you like.
Okay.
I don't want to add too much because we do have another item to focus on, but I quickly wanted to add to Anthony's point that we have had conversations about having events sprinkled out throughout a potential Earth Month, just so that we could alleviate the load of it all falling on one single day. Nothing has been finalized there, but we have started conversations. I had a conversation with Dorothy from the Art Foundation about her interest in potentially inviting environmental artists into maybe we could do a gallery walk or a art gallery here at Town Hall as a part of Earth Month, showcasing environmental artists who draw animals, plants, and other species. So that's a conversation, an idea of the conversations we're involved with as to how we could do events throughout Earth Month or have contributing smaller events to Earth Day. With
you- I ju-
that,
I thought that the art
Mhm.
deal that we had at Earth Day last time wasn't worth it. It was a distraction. I don't have any problem with the idea of doing a environmentally focused art exhibit sometime during the month. I think that's fine, but I think it's a distraction on Earth Day itself.
I guess I need some more clarification and education about exactly what does environmental art mean? I mean, if you draw a cat or a dog or, a
Did
beaver.
you guys go to the art exhibit, either of you?
Yeah,
I did.
I
You
did.
did?
It was in the
Because it was a
pavilion.
competition based on a theme and kids actually did drawings around environmental themes. So they were
But it
all
wasn't,
environmental. Every single one was
it wasn't
environmental
just
based.
kids.
No, there was adults too, and
Yeah.
they were about animals, about extinct animals. They were about recycling materials. Every single one was 100% about that. Unless you want to say the botanical art, there were people who were drawing, who were teaching how people to draw nature. And there was one artist whose work is all pictures of nature.
Well,
So,
If you're gonna have something like that, have an art show the week before or 2 weeks before. Don't have it as part of the.
I'll say what Dorothy said in the past is that the benefit for her for doing it on Earth Day is that she gets more people exposed to the Atherton Art Foundation in that event because people come with their kids, and then they later sign up for classes. When they do it on their own, they get just their little group of people. So for them, it's good. Go ahead,
It's gonna
Stacy.
be
Okay.
in the pavilion, and we just said we wanted the thing over in the main grassy area. So it's gonna be out of the way. Some people won't even know it's there.
Yeah, I have something to say. I think the Art Foundation, having them there, because they're an important community partner, having them have something there is good. I think having it in the Jennings Pavilion, to Bill's point, like it gets lost. So could we ask them to do something outdoors this time? So I think they could be doing, I think they have a lot of classes like how to learn how to sew and repair your clothing. Like there's a lot of things that they do that is environmentally focused and they are a community partner and we should be supporting them. But I think tucking them away in the Jennings Pavilion means that they are an afterthought versus if they move those racks outside, did some kind of like art class or you're painting the trees or something like that. Like there's something, doing a chalk drawing on the sidewalk or something, like there's things that they could do that are interactive and visually interesting that would add to the event instead of us trying to like funnel people away from where the action is. So maybe that could be there.
yes. I definitely do not want to propose the art gallery as a separate conversation. It was just an idea of the conversations we're having of potential events for an Earth Month, just to alleviate the load of it all falling on an Earth Day. We have had conversations with the Art Foundation about activities, and they are planning to do rock painting, and also a special class on how to draw native plants. So that's one of the conversations we're having specifically for the activity of Earth Day, but we're also having conversations of sprinkling out smaller events throughout Earth Month to see if that would be something we're interested in doing. We're hoping to move that forward as we continue to have conversations with the EPC, but really just wanted to use this meeting as an update to you. And I've already taken so much good feedback from all of you, so thank you so much. You have mentioned a few organizations that you might have contacts with. A lot of those organizations are already on my list. However, I don't have direct contacts with. For example, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, I have general contacts, but I don't have direct contacts. So if you have stuff like that to share with me, I would happily take that.
No, we have
Yeah.
a contact and we have the head division later for all the different troops.
Perfect.
The Boy
Thank you.
Scouts helped with the 100th anniversary.
The tree giveaway.
They also did the walk to water too. and
So,
Earth Day.
so staff has contact with.
Okay, perfect.
We can follow up with the ones that we said we'd follow up with, so I'll send you
Yeah.
the email.
So to reiterate, if you have any other contacts that we might not have, I'll happily take those. I do want to be mindful of time. With that, I do wrap up my Earth Day presentation. Do you have any other comments, questions, or concerns?
No, I'd like to get on to number 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristobal. That
Thank
was very
you.
nice. Well done.
So let's move to
I'll write
number
you a
2.
note.
Consideration and discussion of an ordinance to revise the Atherton Municipal Code, section 15.19.30, reach codes. And again, Christabel, you're up.
Perfect. Thank you again. Online, we do have Farhad, which is with our consulting company TRC that is helping us update the reach code or potentially update the reach code. Anthony's pulling up the PowerPoint slides right now that we'll be talking through. For this, we're hoping to mostly review and discuss an ordinance that would potentially amend Chapter 15.19 of the municipal code relating to the Cal Green Building Code. These local modifications would enhance electric ready requirements for new construction and major alterations. I'm looking for direction regarding outdoor gas appliances such as grills and barbecues, specifically for new construction, specifically for new construction. And in the PowerPoint slides, we will depict what we're looking for today.
I'd like to ask a question on what you just said.
Yes.
So even though we voted and we said that we were gonna have gas stoves and
Grills.
fireplaces and barbecues, we're having this meeting so that you can ask us again whether or not we want to have that.
I'll take this.
I think that, we've already made the decision. And so we can't just keep going back and forth on stuff.
So the council's direction was to adopt reach codes related to new construction. And as you talked about those, and as we came back in July, talking about the Berkeley decision, the council's direction was also to consider modifications to the reach code for electric readiness for renovations and alterations of structures. Then the council talked about a point-based system and directed staff to come back with additional information related to reach code expansions for alterations and remodels in connection with that point-based system or any other options. That's why we're here tonight. It was council direction to return with that. The reach codes related to the point-based system, as staff will articulate, are going to come online with the state in 2025. So we're beyond, so we don't really need to do that. So now we're focusing on the other point the council made, and that was electric readiness for renovations and alterations. That's kind of the basis of our discussion tonight, and that comes from council's specific direction.
But it doesn't say go back and review what you've already made decisions on.
It's not, we're not reviewing it, we're reviewing it for your information, not for reconsideration.
The point-based system, can I ask a quick question
That's
about the
not what she
point-based
said.
system? So you said it's coming online by the state, because you're right, we had that presentation, it was super confusing, none of us understood it. And then you went back, so when you guys went back and reviewed that further, it was too confusing and you thought that the state was going to deploy that. Have any of the other cities used it?
No, not to my knowledge, but again, we should go through the presentation
Sure.
before we do some of that, and
Okay.
it'll address some of those issues.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Perfect. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just to reiterate a little bit, today's objective is to discuss the REACH code approach to encourage building electrification, discuss the proposed ordinance amendments to chapter 15.19 of the municipal code, and obtain policy direction on electric readiness for outdoor gas appliances. In this presentation, we're going to go through a little bit of background on the REACH code conversations that we've had so far, and George just summarized for us. We're also going to look at electric readiness opportunities for new construction and for existing buildings, and then we'll wrap up with discussion and questions. Next slide, please. So as George just mentioned, in February, TRC came to you and presented two approaches to the REACH code conversation, or to the REACH code ordinance. The first one was the energy performance approach, and this focused on decarbonization, but it does require the approval from the California Energy Commission. This was found to be a little bit more lengthy, complex, and less relevant with those updates that we're expecting for 2025 energy code requirements. The second one was the electric readiness measures. This prepares building for future electrification without immediate appliance changes. Now, this allows for an easier, more cost-effective electrification that's in line with future regulatory requirements, which we're going to go through here in this presentation, and is also in line with our adopted climate action plan. In July of this year, we repealed and reenacted the REACH code to make it consistent with the federal law as articulated by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling in the California Restaurant Association versus City of Berkeley. Next slide, please. So again, today we're more closely looking at section 4.106.5.2, which is the additions and alterations to single family and multifamily, which has been modified to include additions.
1 second. This slide is a one-time ad, so use the one on the screen before it goes to the next one. Sorry.
Because I'm not
Oh, yes.
seeing it on this
It didn't
page.
make
So
it to the-
sorry.
Didn't make it to the printout.
Okay,
This way I don't go through the gibberish of my entire analysis.
all right.
The high-level overview is that we're making amendments to the code that could ensure new residential construction and major alterations are equipped for future electric appliances like heat pumps, water heaters, cooktops, and dryers. These broader requirements would apply to additions and alterations requiring an electrical permit, where the REACH code now only applies to expansions. And then we're also going to look at the draft REACH code language, which aligns with the electric readiness model REACH code developed by Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And as I mentioned, again, this REACH code, or the proposed amendments to this REACH code, are known to be cost effective because it encourages future readiness at the earliest and least cost stages without requiring the immediate appliance replacements. And the earliest and least cost stages that I'm talking about are new construction and are the times of renovations and alterations.
Wait, I
Is there
can't, you are, the sound is so poor in this room. Yeah, can you say that again? Say that again?
This proposed REACH code is more cost effective because it encourages future readiness at the earliest and least cost stages of new construction and alterations or renovations.
Well.
So is there,
Alterations, okay.
Well,
I have
And
a-
we'll dive into that in this presentation as well.
well.
I have
yeah,
a
yeah.
question.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just, isn't there a metric about how large of a renovation
Yes.
or,
Can we let-
adjustment?
Do you want to present your whole thing and then can we save questions and let her?
No, I
Give her
think
We're
this
gonna
is an
address that in this
important thing, and this
presentation.
is
She's
one-
going to get
There's
to
a
it.
slide dedicated to
Yeah,
that.
there's a
so we
whole
should
slide.
save
Give
that
her
to
1 minute.
I'm-
Let's be patient.
Yeah.
We said
It's in
all
there.
along,
I didn't read ahead.
that renovations had to be major renovations, like you're redoing half or 2/3 of your house. Now, if we're gonna say
Section.
renovations, and now it's gonna be able to say, oh, well, you're redoing parts of your kitchen or your bathroom, it's gotta make it.
Well, anytime you get an
We'll discuss
electrical
it.
permit,
And
that's what's before us. You're right, we agreed to
Yeah.
major renovations, I think where there's square footage added and
Right.
a certain amount probably, and new construction, but this is now addressing any electrical permit that
Well,
Can we
involves
please let her do her
these-
That's
presentation?
not what we were, no.
But
just
that's
wait a
what they're
second.
proposing.
Well,
We're,
we
we're,
already had
Hasn't got out
agreed
a
that we weren't
proposal
gonna do
yet.
that.
we're putting stuff out here for discussion and direction. And an electrical permit is one trigger. But there's a lot of exceptions that are also built into this to address the things like, you're having emergency replacement, or you're just replacing a small item and it triggers an electrical permit, but it's just a small item. Those are exceptions in the code and they'll be addressed by staff. You can also add in those other larger renovations. That's the feedback we're looking for tonight, so we can craft an ordinance for you to introduce next month or next
Well,
month.
George, in what you put in all of our mailboxes, you know, you said, oh, okay, just like you just said. Well, staff will decide.
You know, no staff's looking for feedback at tonight's meeting.
Well, okay, but you can't have something written in a form that says, oh, but the definition will be determined by the local enforcing agency.
Can we
So the
please let her
Ordinances
do
are
it?
based on Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy ordinances, model ordinances. That's what we're bringing to you for discussion and modification for Atherton, to make them Atherton specific. We're not going to prejudge what the council wants. We're going to give you the opportunity to provide input.
Okay, I have something to say. I think we need to go through this deck because this deck clearly divides new constructions, which they have questions for us about outdoor appliances that we need to give direction on. And then we shift gears from new buildings to renovations, and we have this battle when we have the relevant slides on the screen
If
for
we
us to
let
go
them
through it.
present, we can
So,
address it. Yes. Thank
Let's
you,
talk about new
Stacy.
construction because they do have questions, because we have talked about pool equipment and outdoor barbecues and all that kind of stuff, and we haven't given them direction on it.
I thought we did.
So we didn't. So we didn't come to a
Yes, we
conclusion.
did.
So
We've
let's-
given direction
well,
on
they
this.
forgot then, so let's get
We
it
can do
done.
it
You
now.
know, we can just keep coming back and asking the same question over and over again until staff gets the answer that they're hoping to get.
No,
Okay,
Bill,
but
you're
when we make a decision,
misremembering.
this is one of the things that really frustrates me about government. Okay, and especially about this. You don't get the right answer, so we bring it back again and we waste our time.
So I think that Stacy's suggestion is right. Can we divide this into what feedback you need on new construction? Let's deal with that, get past it, and then deal with the renovations and alterations.
This is the next slide. We're just not letting her talk.
Yes. At this point, I was going to turn it over to our technical expert Farhad to go through the 2025 energy code changes that we can expect to see and the requirements from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District
Is this
As-
on new construction?
Yeah.
leading up to it.
And this
And
is
then we're
this
going to
slide.
go through the potential amendments for new construction and for existing buildings. With that, Farhad, are you online and able to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Honorable Council, for listening to this item tonight. I'll do my best to make it worth your time. This is an overview of the 2025 Energy Code. I'm going to walk through the single family row first. You can see that under space heating, heat pumps were prescriptively required under this current code cycle that we're in 2022, the 2022 building code, and that will be maintained for 2025 in your climate zone, and particularly Atherton. For water heating, gas systems are the prescriptive baseline currently, but by 2025, heat pump water heaters will be prescriptively required. So both space and water heating will be prescriptively required to be heat pumps, as well as electric ready cooking and drying. So everything inside the building will be prescriptively required to be heat pumps and electric ready. So the focus of the discussion is on outdoor appliances for new construction. For multifamily, it's very similar, a story to a single family. The one distinction is under water heating for 2025. For central systems, gas and propane systems are still allowed as a prescriptive baseline. However, your overall building electrical service, according to the 2025 Energy Code, must be sized for all future electric appliances to be electric ready. You can go to the next slide.
Well, wait, can we ask questions as you go? You said a change for 2025 is that between multifamily and individual is that multifamily allows gas and propane as centralized space heating?
That's
and
correct.
Water heating, I guess?
Just water heating. And the budget is based on, can be based on either a gas or electric system. In all cases, those must be electric ready. So whether you install a gas system, basically if you install a gas system, you still have to provide adequate electrical and physical space to accommodate electrical equipment.
Okay, isn't all of this electric ready issue? I mean, there's no prohibition to using gas in single family as well as in multifamily. It's just what has to be electric ready, right?
That's correct. And the amount of budget, there's budgets that the state sets around energy usage as well as emissions. And if you install a gas appliance, you get penalized on those budgets, and you're encouraged to use electric appliances. This is just contextual information. We're really going to focus on the electric ready, and I want to get into the regulations that are coming down by the air quality districts on the next slide. That's going to be more pertinent to this discussion.
But the 2025 energy code, these are the state codes, right?
Yes.
That have been passed.
Passed will be and adopted by the Energy Commission, and will be adopted by the Building Standards Commission in 1 or 2 months.
But haven't been.
Yeah. It's a kind of a paperwork issue. It's been adopted by the Energy Commission.
Who has to sign off on it?
The Building Standards Commission.
Not the governor?
I don't believe it goes to the governor's desk.
Nice to know if we did that. That's the case.
Okay.
Okay, we can go on to the next slide here. This is going to be more pertinent to our discussion. There's 2 air quality agency regulations that I want to make sure you're aware of. One is by the California Air Resources Board, and their rules are in process. So and we're actually supporting them developing these rules. But what it would require is 0 NOx appliances for boilers and water heaters that are less than 75 kB2H. So these are going to be your like storage tank water heaters by 2027. That same 0 NOx requirement would be effective for tankless water heaters starting in 2029, and for furnaces as well and starting in 2029. This is for new construction, existing buildings, you name it. They're going to go to distributors, retailers, and check to see that they are only selling 0 NOx appliances for purposes of water heating and space heating by 2029. And 0 NOx appliances under current technology are all electric. Again, they are doing working groups around this to understand technical feasibility issues based on our conversations with them. They are on track for this timeline. The second air quality agency that is also looking at these very similar regulations is the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, also known as BACMed. They are looking at also boilers and water heaters and furnaces under 2027 and 2029 timeframes. Again, if your water heater breaks, you will be required to install instead, or you could only buy 0 NOx appliances by those dates. There's some history around why these requirements are coming into place. It has to do with the non-attainment and air quality in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area generally, which is in non-attainment according to Environmental Protection Agency standards, as well as California Clean Air Act standards. And that's what authority, these agencies are using their authority to regulate outdoor air to require these appliance limits on NOx. I do have South Coast air quality regulations on this slide. They are much more aggressive and also much more detailed. They also have they are in further non-attainment than the San Francisco Bay Area. And I believe that in the Los Angeles area, they're being more aggressive for that reason. But I provided that here for detail. We do expect other air quality agencies to follow similar strategies once these rules get adopted.
So are any of these currently being challenged in the courts?
Not to our knowledge, no. We've spoken with all 3 of these agencies, and they have not been reached out to. This is why they were created, is to regulate NOx. That's their.
No, I understand why they were created, but it's just the same as the elimination of natural gas, and then that got challenged in the courts and then got overturned.
It's and any policy could get litigated. That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask a question? Are and Bachmud, are they regulating pool heaters and outdoor grills and stuff? You've mentioned furnace, boilers, water heaters. What are they doing for the outdoor stuff that
Great
we're
question.
talking about?
They are not going to be regulating cooking equipment. They will be regulating pool heaters. You'll see under 2031, CARB will have pool heaters as part of that.
Okay, yeah,
They will not be regulating fireplaces.
or grills.
Oh, yes, no cooking equipment, no.
Well, fireplaces aren't cooking equipment, they're heating.
No, he said grills as well.
No, he said, if I understood, he said grills and barbecues aren't being regulated.
Right.
And fire
and
But
pits
fireplaces are different than grills and
Right.
barbecues.
for outdoor fire pits. and
Outdoor fire
barbecues.
pits, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound like they're regulating those.
Right, it's just pool heaters, right?
But
The
indoor
fireplaces too.
fires
Right. But,
I don't know.
for
Well,
new
we are-
construction.
right, but what I was asking because the question we are being asked to answer is how we are regulating outdoor stuff. So I wanted to understand
Yes.
what was coming down the pipeline for the stuff that we're making decisions
And I
on.
thought we had already kind of decided about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that
But we
was my
can
point
ratify
at
it
the
again.
beginning of
Uh,
this.
We're coming back. to
Let's
it.
just get through it, you guys.
Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so on the existing building approach, considering these regulations are coming down the line, we want to prepare buildings for future electric appliances. These types of requirements would include branch circuit wiring or conduit, circuit breakers or panel space, physical space, and condensate drainage. These are known as electric readiness reach codes. These would require that applicants, when they're already pulling a permit for a renovation project, abide by certain electric ready requirements. This avoids missed opportunities. This adds very small additional costs, which I'll get to in a minute. They avoid retrofit costs once BACMET and CARB standards take effect. They do not mandate a specific appliance or fuel be used. And these are all, everything we're presenting is in addition to the electric readiness requirements that would be required under the 2025 Energy Code.
Oh. Okay, so just clarification. So what you just said, if I understand it, is that the reach codes are dealing with when a permit is pulled for a renovation project. And that goes beyond what is currently planned for the 2025 Energy Code.
Correct.
Okay?
All right, we can move on to the next slide.
Well, hold on this last slide.
Sure.
Okay, so you say electric readiness, okay, it requires applicants whenever they're pulling a permit, blah, 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 blah. There's little or no additional cost.
Mhm.
Okay, I disagree
not-
with that.
That's going to be on the last slide.
And
Councilman.
there's not only little or no additional cost, there's a time frame. So let's say,
Mhm.
poor old lady's got her water heater goes out or her gas heater went out. Now suddenly she has to call an electrician who's gonna come in 3 weeks because they're all booked. And so she sits there without a water heater or sits.
Councilmember,
Bill,
that's not one of the example trigger points that we're presenting tonight.
This
Please.
whole slide is related
But it's a
to.
fact.
Can I ask a clarifying question
I don't
about
care
this
if you're
slide?
presenting
Isn't
it.
this entirely focused on new construction, this slide?
No,
It's
this is,
confusing because it's called existing building approach, but is this all these?
no, this is existing building. So
This is
It's
for
the building. The
renovations.
next.
Yeah,
page
no,
says
look,
We
look
keep
under,
running.
look under the second, electric readiness reach codes require applicants when they are already pulling a permit for a
Right.
renovation project. So that, if you're pulling a permit for a renovation project, that's not new construction.
We'll get to the
And that's
detail
not an
of that.
emergency situation that Councilmember
That's
Widmer
different.
brought up as, that would create a
different case.
problem. So we have to realize what these, it's good that we're clarifying it, what these standards are functioning under the condition. So if you're already pulling a permit for a renovation project, these are the items that will apply.
Right, and Farhad will get to that when he talks about
Proposed to
renovations.
apply, that they are, somebody's proposing that they,
Farhad will get to that when he talks about renovations. Right now, he's gonna really focus on the new construction.
okay.
yes, we're going to pivot to new construction for a moment here. If we can go to
That's
the
why
next.
there's big
few slides.
blue pages.
Just do one, then the other.
One, there you go.
All right, so this outlines what's already required in the new construction code. You can see that for both single family and multifamily, there's a lot the state energy codes are already covering. Water heating, space heating, cooktop, clothes dryer, energy storage. So the remaining opportunities in new construction are quite diminished. They're really on the outdoor equipment, outdoor cooking, if you have gas plumbing going to it. Of course, we don't want to regulate propane appliances, they're propane tanks. Portable propane tanks. If you have pool or spa heating equipment, that can be electric ready added on to the state code. And indoor and outdoor fireplaces, again, if you have gas plumbing going to them, that's where the opportunity remains. But while these are very few appliances likely, they do not represent the majority of the emissions likely in Atherton. They do represent a gas connection to the building, and they do represent that gas connection would be maintained for longer if it's not does not have electric infrastructure. And gas connection means methane leakage throughout the gas grid for a longer period, resulting in greenhouse gas emissions. So there is some worth to them still, of course, being electric ready, and that's why we present them today. We present on electric readiness in existing buildings. Predominantly, that's where the opportunity really relies. But I wanted to touch on what is available on new construction briefly.
So this chart here brought up a question that was previous. So you have energy storage systems, okay? So they have to be electric ready. If you have an existing structure and you want to get a generator, can it be a gas powered generator, propane powered generator?
Talking backup generator for your
Exception.
electricity.
That's one of the exceptions that they have listed.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the exceptions we had. but I
No,
don't
it's
see
not-
it
it's
listed
an
here.
exception at
I
the
don't
state
see it
level.
listed here.
That was going to be one of my questions too.
It's in your current code already as an exception.
Okay, but here's being called out here.
Well, I have somewhat related question, which is, can you explain the energy storage system ready issue that
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
that says that you have to do something to be prepared to bring in a battery panel? And what does that require?
It's basically panel space, physical space on the wall, and a couple of reserved breakers. That's all it is.
But if you're having a storage unit so that when the power goes out, you have it, but now it has to be connected to the electricity. And let's say your power's out for a period of time, you're just saying, I'm guaranteeing you're gonna be without power.
Well, if you don't have a storage system, you're without power.
I know, but if you put one in, but it has to be electric ready, okay? It has to be tied to the electrical system, and the electrical system is out. Now suddenly you got something that's worthless.
Uh,
You're charging it yourself if you have solar panels. It depends on what you're talking about here.
Yeah,
All
council
they're
member,
doing
I
is
just want to clarify, there's no energy storage requirements as part of the REACH code that we're talking about tonight. These are state code requirements that I'm presenting on the left column. You can, in some cases, if you'd like, link up your gas generator to the same infrastructure that is intended to be energy storage ready, which is intended for a battery, but you can instead put your gas generator in that would be fine.
So before Farhad continues on to those three opportunities for discussion and direction this evening, what the council provided direction on and what's in the current code is that residential buildings may contain non-electric indoor and outdoor cooking appliances, fireplaces, and fire pits. And emergency generators may utilize fuel gas. That was the direction the council provided. So what we're talking about now is electric readiness requirements, not what the council directed before.
That's right. And the readiness, and so shall we discuss that now?
Yeah.
And this is for new construction.
Correct.
And I thought previously we decided we wanted readiness
Right.
for hot water, and for space heating and for cooking.
Right.
And that we didn't want readiness for fireplaces, grills, and barbecues. And we had a discussion about the pool, and I'm not sure if we ever really resolved the pool
Correct.
issue.
No, we left it open. We didn't decide.
Like
whether-
So
heating
it-
the pool.
I think from my opinion, I liked what we decided before, but I think we should include the pool
For
as
electric
electrical
readiness?
readiness.
Well, I kind of disagree.
So there's only 3 areas that we can make inclusions for readiness: outdoor cooking, for pool and spa heating, and indoor and outdoor fireplaces. Those are the 3 items we need specific direction on tonight.
Well, why
Oh,
would
what
I
about
just said I
space
would
heating?
include,
we have?
Well, the water's not part of that. It's
no,
just
it's,
those
we've
3.
already
Saying
done
pool,
that.
water.
Right.
I
Pool.
just said that I would include the pool, but I wouldn't include the rest.
Yeah.
And why is that? Why?
Hmm?
Why? What's your thought?
Because I think that the other items, if people are gonna have them be gas, they're gonna have the gas in there.
Yeah.
And it's harder to convert them. They're much less useful for electricity. I don't want a fireplace that's electricity.
And they're
You're,
not
Personally.
you're
used
talking
every
about the
day.
new technology. The point is when you build a house now, you're building for 30 years from now. There will be massive changes. And once you dig everything, and the whole reason for readiness is you're digging everything up, you're putting the wires in. If you do it now, this is important that why we're talking about this, is that you're doing it cheaper now. In the future, you're gonna have to dig it up. You're making a really big, so let's say you're the person that does it this year. So let's say this year I do my energy panels and I don't account, and now I won't have to change that again for another, what, I don't know how long they live, but probably a long time because mine's at least 20 years now. So if I don't change it out now, by this time out here, I won't even be able to buy those appliances anymore. So while I'm changing it, I should change it now in anticipation while it's cheap to put the wires in.
Well, it's never cheap to put wires in. It always costs money. And you're making people spend money that they may never have to spend.
Right.
So whereas cooking, hot water heating, space heating, and I think the pool are things that people are going to do. And if you can't have a gas grill, I think a lot of people will just do charcoal grills rather than have an electrical grill put in. Or if you have a space heater out, that you're sitting around like a little gas fireplace. I mean, I don't think that people are gonna convert that to electricity. So I wouldn't want to force them to pay for it because you think you're smarter than they are, that they have to now pay to put in electricity for something that's a totally unnecessary expense if they're never gonna convert from gas to electricity.
Well, yeah.
And those things, I don't think they're necessarily gonna convert.
And I agree with you. and
Stacy?
I
go
agree with
ahead.
you and I agree, but I disagree on the pool. I think we should leave the pool for now.
I have something to say.
Please.
The pool equipment, they said that in 2031,
Right.
they're not allowing gas pool equipment. So I think from my perspective, having that be electric ready makes a lot of sense because we already know there's an end date for gas powered pool equipment coming in 2031. So when they replace it,
Agree
they
with
should
that.
be electric ready because that's like 6 years from now. So
On new equipment, on
For-
new
On
construction.
new
new
construction.
construction,
Right.
new pools should have electric readiness because we know in 2031, you can no longer buy a gas pool heater.
And we're only
So-
talking new construction right
New
now.
construction, new pools.
So if you've already
So-
put it in now, then,
And
you
then
know,
when it dies inevitably, you will
And
only in
it's
6
not
years
that
be able to
complicated
buy
because you're gonna have
gas.
electricity at
Right.
that pool equipment location anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that one feels, because it has an end date, that one feels like we should be getting electric ready because we know that they are no longer being sold starting in 2031. So that one stands out to me separate from the other two for that reason. And I think people will understand that very
you're assuming
clearly.
that in 6 years, that pool, that piece of equipment is going to fail and you're going to need a new one.
Well, after 6 years,
Or after 6 years.
After
It could
6
be
years, you can't
15
buy
years,
new
it could be
gas.
20 years.
Right.
And then, you renovate, you get rid of your pool because pools are no longer,
Yeah,
you know,
but-
fashionable.
Suppose-
the point
Possibility.
being, in
Yeah.
6 years, you will not be able to buy a new gas
Yeah,
heater.
that makes a lot of
So
sense.
that, to me, it feels different from the other two because the state is already phasing that one out in 6 years. So electric
Agreed.
readiness, we know we need to be ready by 2031. Those are separate.
About that.
I, in general, feel like we should be trying to not install new gas lines. But I think Rick's point with the fireplace, like, I don't know that anyone would want an electric
Fireplace?
outdoor
Pit?
fireplace. I've never seen that. I've only seen indoor electric fireplaces and they're amazing, but I haven't seen any outdoor ones, so I don't
Mhm.
feel as strongly about that one.
And that's for new construction,
For new.
That is new construction.
new construction.
And we're not allowed to limit gas, because I'm like, why don't we just have it all be propane and
So people are
Get rid
having
of
gas
this
brought to
problem.
their house anyway, so I don't understand why you'd say, oh, well, you know,
I mean, I think,
Trying to phase out gas.
I know that, but.
Mm. But practically speaking,
I think
with
outdoor cooking,
existing.
there are nice outdoor grills that people I've never seen one, but I've read that they're great. So I don't
electric
know.
grills.
Yeah, outdoor electric grills. So
Probably true,
for barbecues.
Mhm.
probably true.
So.
I haven't seen one,
Yeah,
but.
I
probably
haven't seen
true.
one. but-
Yeah, so I don't know. That one feels different because it's the fireplace, like whatever. I don't know. The cooking, I could go either way.
So it's gas
um,
and propane, right?
Well, no, it's a gas line. So people
Oh,
could switch
right.
to a propane because there's
Yeah,
no rules around
right.
that. So it's, if we are allowing them to trench to add a gas line, do we also require them to add an electric line, whether they're already trenching? Is the question.
Well, if they're
So
choosing
easy.
to put in a
If
gas
they're
line,
choosing to put in a
Yeah.
gas line.
are we gonna
enabled
require
grill,
them to put in
are we
electricity?
adding an electric line into that trench?
Mhm.
Most of our new construction is
Is
knock down a house
doing
that
it.
already has a
Yeah.
gas line to it. So the gas line's already there and they're rebuilding the house on the
But they
space.
have to
We
trench
don't-
it
Yeah,
to
but
the
they gotta,
grill.
yeah,
Can-
but I mean.
Can I make a comment here?
Yeah.
I just put in a grill on my deck in the backyard and
Aw,
I've got
invite
electric.
us over.
I've got an electric outlet right there anyway, so if it was an electric grill, it would plug right in. I don't
Yeah.
know anybody who's gonna build a nice outdoor kitchen that's not also gonna run electric to that
Right.
outdoor kitchen, so electric readiness on an outdoor cooking.
Yeah,
wouldn't
because
be
you
that
have
big of a deal.
duplexes that
deal.
you want to plug in
Right.
your
Well,
Right, your lighting.
margarita
and your-
mixer.
I think you should invite us over so we can see it, George.
Right, right.
Well,
I just think like if you're trenching to add a gas line, adding an electric line, I'm not a construction expert, but if you're already digging a trench, isn't that the biggest part of the expense is the trenching?
Trench.
sure
Yes,
what
that's true.
electric
So-
readiness for an electric grill would be. I think it's absolutely true. Anytime someone puts in a grill, maybe unless it's charcoal, they're gonna have electricity there because they want a light
Yeah,
on their cooking surface and so there's going to be electricity there and there's probably, if it's a contained grill, there's probably gonna be a fan, an exhaust fan. So there's definitely electricity there. I don't know though what the state of the art electric grill is. Did you put in an electric grill?
No, it's gas.
It's gas. So I don't know what a state of the art electric grill is, but the requirement today for an electric grill could be different than the requirement would be in 5 years.
Right.
We
No,
see
That's
appliances
true.
But it's a
change.
one
Right,
time.
Farhad, is there if it's electric readiness for outdoor cooking, is there a outlet requirement?
That's a great question. So I have a product guide in front of me that has both 120 volt and 240 volt appliances. These are made by Electrus Chef, Kenyon, Weber, Kuma, Americana. It seems like most of them are the 120 volt type. That's what we could require. And in a minute, I will describe how a heat pump water heater electric readiness works. And basically, you install a 120 volt circuit, but you have a third conductor in that same circuit that is not connected, right? So it's just hanging and capped on either end. And so what that would allow is in the future, you could make that 240 volt ready without having to replace the whole circuit, if that's what you wanted to. So it would be 120 volt immediately with the option to upgrade to 240 volt later. And that's a type of thing that we can require.
I think people are gonna go to charcoal. And
That's a
worse
cool
for the
idea.
environment.
I don't know.
So I hear
Maybe
consensus
quarter
around, oh, I'm sorry. I hear consensus around the pool and spa, not so much around the cooking and fireplace. If we can go to the next slide briefly, just to show what some of the language might look like, please. So right now, this is kind of a blanket type of language that says you can install conduit or the circuit wiring. You have to provide a reserved breaker. You have to accommodate your panel size to accommodate a future electric appliance, and then you have to show the physical space of the appliance. So really, it's just a conduit that is appropriately sized, as well as some reserve breaker spaces. That's all this type of requirement would be. We could take it a step higher and say that, you know, the wiring needs to be there for that appliance, but it really doesn't. That's not a necessity. And so, if there's consensus around pools and spas, we can move forward with that one. But I'd like to understand if there is something around cooking as well. Fireplaces, I think that council's right. That would probably be a bit of a stretch. There's radiating appliances available currently, but it's uncertain whether that would actually be practical.
But you have indoor and outdoor listed. So are indoor fireplaces not supposed to be electric ready? I thought the whole inside of the building was being taken care
Only
of by the state,
fireplaces.
not
No.
fireplaces.
We didn't say
Yes.
that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I think this year, the state is adding cooking
Right.
to readiness, whereas space and water had already been. So,
Yeah.
Council member, cooking and clothes drying are currently already required to be electric ready, and those will be maintained in the 2025 code.
But we're still allowing gas cooking, gas outdoor cooking, and
Yes.
but if I can ask a question, so the language here says, you know, that I assume and without reading all of it, it means that it'll be ready, including appropriate voltage, phase, minimum amperage, and electrical receptacles. So that's going to be based on what the currently available product would require, right? So if you were saying if you put in a gas grill, you have to make it electric ready for an electric grill, you would have to comply with the voltage, amperage, minimum amperage, and phase requirements of those electric grills
that are readily available.
that are available today. And my point is that didn't electric hot water heaters just go through over the last few years a major change so that they're no longer required to be 240 volts. They in fact have 120 volt hot water heaters. And if you had required those homeowners to make their hot water heater space electric ready 5 years ago, they would have had to have a 240 volt system ready, whereas today they operate just fine with 120 volts.
Yeah, but I thought he said, all you have to do is have the panel size and the conduit there. So you could run a conduit there, although it does mention wiring here, we need to take that out. But you can put in a conduit and then blow a ball through it and then pull the whatever wire type you need, whatever gauge you need.
Yes, you're both absolutely correct. That last line under item A, appropriately sized conduit may be installed in lieu of conductors. You know, we can bring that up to the front, make that less confusing. Absolutely, conduit can be used. And then that's absolutely correct that 120 volt appliances for heat pump water heaters are currently becoming more available. They do have slightly less amenity than 240 volt. 240 volt has more power. It can heat up faster. It can be, used, recharged more quickly. The 120 volt appliance is mostly for retrofit applications that have limited and constrained electrical capacity. In a new construction scenario, that constrained capacity is not really going to be an issue. And 240 volts, higher amenity is considered to be desirable in that kind of scenario. That said, just conduit. Conduit is all you need.
Okay, then I'm shifting my perspective. That I think all of them should be electric ready. Because like, why wouldn't we be ready? It just seems like it's conduit. These are
Not pulling the
You might
wire.
not,
Right,
but
this
you're
is
not
new
going to necessarily
construction.
have conduit going to an outdoor fireplace. you are gonna have it coming, because you're gonna have electricity coming into where the grill is,
Yeah,
and certainly to where the pool is.
yeah.
But one of those outdoor fireplaces, they don't require electricity.
Unless they have little
They have
lights
lights
on
and
them.
Well, they might
They
have
do, I
little
mean, you
lights
know,
on.
I-
that's what they
I just
all
don't
do,
think this
don't
is
they?
that, given in context that this is new construction.
Yeah. I don't think it's a big deal.
I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Ours
And
either.
so I think we should include it.
Well,
I
if we're
agree.
having, if we're having a gas fireplace, it just doesn't make any sense to me that you want to have an electrical circuit just on the outside of it. I just don't think that that's, first off, I think you could be asking for trouble.
I mean, if you have
Gas
an
fireplace
electrical,
can heat up and, of
but
course.
you're not, you haven't pulled the wire yet.
Well, you could, no, but he's saying, do you want an outlet?
Oh, an
on-
outlet.
On the
Yeah.
fire?
A lot of these have electric.
might.
They all have
These are
like little
high-end
lights
houses.
and
They're all
stuff, don't they?
We
smart
have
and
lights
have
and
On yours?
electric near our
You don't
fireplace,
put
absolutely.
lights by the fireplace.
We do have lights by our
Well, not
fireplace. This is
everybody does.
high-end.
Some of these little
city.
fireplaces.
High-end
you
people
know.
like you maybe has a light there, but most people.
Oh,
don't.
goodness.
This is new construction. Yes, that's where I'm really coming back to that, this
Yes,
being new
it's not
construction. And I
onerous
just
and
don't,
it's better safe
given
than
the-
sorry.
structures that are new constructions in Atherton, I don't know that
I,
this is
I
a big
agree. I think it's
issue.
pennies
Yeah.
compared to,
So with that, I'm seeing consensus on all three for electric readiness. Farhad, you want to move to the next
I
one?
would say yes, yeah.
I'm going to say yes.
All right.
Cool.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so on existing buildings, I believe this is our last slide, and this will get into the cost discussion. So again, as a reminder, this is in situations where there's a permit getting pulled, specifically an electrical permit. This will not include the following three things: standalone equipment replacements or repairs. So if your water heater breaks, this is not what would be triggered. If the project's not requiring an electrical permit, or lastly, if compliance with electric readiness in your existing building would trigger a utility service upgrade, so PG&E would have to come out and increase your wiring, that you were not originally planning on doing. A lot of alteration projects, that is something that they will already have as part of the project. And in those situations, that's not going to be exempt. However, if an electric readiness provision would trigger that service upgrade from PG&E, that's not going to be required as part of this ordinance, and that would be exempt. Now, something that's not in the ordinance and that is for discussion tonight is what that minimum cost threshold should be. And we suggest that we do some permit data analysis to determine what's a reasonable threshold there, and as per your direction, something like $3,000, more or less, whatever might make sense. But what I've provided here on the table to the right are the types of projects that would be taking place, the number of permits that you typically see for those kinds of projects in Atherton, what the requirement would be, and then what that cost per appliance that we estimate would be in order to comply with this REACH code. Now I can walk through this line by line if that would be helpful.
No.
I'm a
No.
little confused because any kitchen renovation that I've ever done was a lot more than $500 to $1,000.
That's correct.
I
So
agree. I think the $3,000 is way, way too low.
mhm.
And when you look at your cost per appliance, okay, so I'm doing something like in the laundry room because my dryer went out, now I have to buy an electric dryer. Well, depending on where your laundry room is, you're gonna have to upgrade your panel, then you're gonna have to run wire there, then you get it all set up. And so it's not gonna be $500 or $1,000. I don't know where you came up with these numbers. But
Maybe
we
I'm
don't
not
pay those
understanding.
prices here in Atherton.
I'm not
And-
understanding.
And when we talked about renovation, we talked about major renovations, like taking a good part of your house down to the studs, not $3,000.
I think that
Well
we're not
over 100.
understanding that, Bill. I think that we need to, it says per appliance, so to run the conduit, the circuit wiring. So
And remember, this doesn't apply to someone who's just going to replace their water heater or just going to replace their heating system, because standalone equipment replacements or repairs are
No, I
not
think
part of
it does
this.
apply to someone who's just gonna replace their water heater.
It says it
Oh,
right
It says
here.
it right there.
Exceptions.
exception listed.
Where
I
it
do,
says
but-
it where?
Right on the
It's
left-hand side of the
first
chart.
Exception on the slide. That's exceptions
George-
colon first sub bullet, standalone equipment replacements.
On the
You
chart.
gotta look at the little chart
Well,
here.
$3,000.
When you
is-
change your
right.
water heater and your
I see,
space
I see,
heater,
but
do you get a
$3,000 is
permit?
too-
Do you
too
pull
much.
electric
You
permit
can't
for
do
that?
anything in
If you
Atherton
need to
for
replace the
$3,000.
electrical, yes.
So if you're replacing something that's already existing, I would still draw a permit. So we do have to have this exception above the permit. Okay.
Right. So let's walk through the kitchen renovation example. And
Good.
the way we framed the triggers here are if you're performing a major alteration, as an example here in your kitchen. So, this might be a $15,000, $20,000 project, even more. And your range, your cooktop, is already going to have an electrical circuit because even if it's a gas range, it will have an LED panel, it will have electrical ignition for that flame. And so you'd be running a 120-volt circuit to that kitchen, the cooktop already. What this requirement would say is that needs to align with the 2025 or the state energy code requirements for kitchen cooktops, which are 240-volt appliances. And that's really something that, and to the council member's point, there are 120-volt stoves available. Right, the way they do that is they embed a battery. It's by Channing Street Copper. They have a battery in the stove, and that kind of appliance is available. But again, that's for retrofit that's for situations where you have panel capacity issues, where you're not going to be doing a major renovation, and you want a 120-volt type of appliance. That would be perfect. So, this is a kind of a situation where we're pointing to the state energy code. You have a major kitchen project happening. It's already going to have a 120-volt circuit. We would point to the new construction requirements for a 240-volt appliance. Compared to the cost of the project of around $20,000, this would be an additional $500 to $1,000. Another council member made a point that the wiring would need to run from the panel all the way to the kitchen, and that's true. If you're not going to be upgrading your circuits, any kind of circuits in the kitchen, then yeah, that could be a cost if the wiring is going in between floors, or can't be fished out into the attic, or it's not going through an underfloor. Those could be very, very costly, and that's true. This is assuming a kind of a standard condition where you have access to your attic, or you have access to a subfloor or a basement, and that will be easier to run that wire to it.
Well, we're talking about Atherton homes that are very, very large. I don't think any kitchen remodel in Atherton is $20,000. I think the numbers are low, and I don't think it's as easy as you're saying it's going to be for the types of homes that we have here in Atherton. They're 10,000 to 20,000 square feet.
Well, not.
And, you're gonna have to rerun wire and do a bunch of other stuff, it's not just
It's a little
you know,
hyperbole there.
have an electrician out there for a half hour putting stuff up. Plus, the electrician is gonna cost you more than $3,000.
So just also for some clarification here, the exceptions listed on that slide there, they're not in the actual draft ordinance because we're waiting for council feedback as to what exceptions you want, what limits you want. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. If we want to do electric readiness for these requirements, what kinds of exceptions do you want?
So I'm looking at the staff report. So maybe that's the disconnect.
Yeah.
Because the staff report says, the ordinance, let's see.
Under the existing ordinance,
You're looking at the table.
10 of 28.
Yeah,
He's looking at page 10 of 28.
the amendments would broaden electrical readiness requirements to apply to a broader range of projects beyond expansions. Specifically, all additions or alterations, and an alteration is any change to your house, that requires an electrical permit.
Yeah.
So if you're required to get an electrical permit in the laundry room, even if it has nothing to do with the dryer area, if it's because you're putting in a new outlet, you have to create electrical readiness for a future electrical dryer. If you're getting any kind of an electrical permit in the kitchen, and because you want to put lights under your cabinets, you have to make your cooktop electrically ready. I think we should not go to those items beyond what the green code is.
Right.
And let the state figure that out. And as the state requires it, we'll comply with it. But these, or if you want to have a threshold, I'd say the minimum cost should be $100,000. Because when people do a renovation, a major renovation is a lot more than $100,000.
Yes, it
But
is.
Let me play devil's advocate. Once you tear the wall open, we know all the stuff is coming electric. Why not do it now when you have it torn open? Otherwise, 2 years later, you're gonna have to tear it open again, when right now it's gonna cost
you're
less.
going to
That's
put
the
in a
whole
new
point of
cooktop,
making
you're
us
going
do
to
it
have to
now.
tear it open again anyway.
Not if you're just
And
plumb
you
for
don't
it
know what the
already.
requirements are going to be in the future. They've changed in the past. And so you would require people to spend the money twice. I won't. I'd require them to spend it once.
I'm with Rick on this thing, and I think that there are minor things where you're moving a plug around or you're putting in under cabinet lights or things like that, that have nothing to do with the appliances, and we shouldn't be having to add extra cost here.
But what you just described is not a major renovation. We're talking about if
This
someone's
doesn't
doing
require a major renovation. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Any
that's
electrical
Any
permit.
permit, you
Yeah,
pull a
that's
That's what
permit,
staff.
and
has
right
to
now it
investigate.
says, and the permit, and the cost of doing the work is
That's the-
$1,000.
That's the hiccup.
That's the current ordinance
Yeah.
as it's, proposed by Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Coalition. What staff's asking for is if you want to adopt something like that, we're suggesting you consider some exceptions. That's the list on the left-hand side of the table, or a dollar threshold of some kind as well. That's what we're asking the council for feedback tonight.
So like under these exceptions, like a standalone equipment replacement or repair would protect the old lady whose hot water heater went
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's great.
I agree.
Okay. And then but what if it requires, I don't know, electrical permit?
It's an exception.
That's still an exception.
Wait,
No, no,
no, it
'cause-
says if the project doesn't already require an electrical permit. What, I don't know what the word.
Maybe I can help here. So, so this table on the right, I'm going to step through because these are our actual triggers. It's not any project that requires an electrical permit that would be triggered under this ordinance. It's really a specific type of project. So those first two rows, they stipulate that if you are doing a project where you're upgrading your panel or your service to your building, then the first row would say that service should be accommodating a all-electric future building. So you have to have enough reserved breakers for it. And, going from a 200 amp panel, for example, to a 400 amp panel is about $0 to $500. The second portion of this requirement would be that if you are upgrading your electrical service, and let me just bring up the ordinance here. Draft ordinance. Let's see. So if you are upgrading your electrical panel and service, then I believe this came from direction from the council, but then you would be required to run a 120 volt circuit to where your water heater is and comply also with the space heating requirements for electric readiness. So those are the three types of requirements that would be in place. Your
So
panel,
why? Why would you have to do that?
If
It's
you're
a-
upgrading your panel
So
or
I'm
service.
upgrading my
Doing it.
panel, and down in the basement is my water heater. Why do I need to then get an electrician to run all the way down there just in case my water heater goes out sometime in the future and I can't buy a new one?
And why wouldn't you do it in the future?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'm asking that question, why?
because you don't want to be without hot water and the circuit would be there available to you right away.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
I think if you upgrade your panel, that has nothing to do with pieces of appliances you have elsewhere in your house. You shouldn't have to run wires all throughout your house to handle that. I disagree with that. I'm against that.
Well, again, these are the triggers that he's going through that the ordinance would apply to. But the exceptions would overlay that. So Farhad, do you want to go on to the next one?
Nice.
Sure, sure. I just want to make sure that, the intent there was captured that if somebody's water heater breaks and they can't buy another gas appliance because of the BACmet or CARB rules, then they have the circuit there available to them, so they're not left without hot water. That was kind of the thinking behind that one.
Yeah, okay, well, that's fine. So you pay the price at that time. But if you're updating your panel's at one end of your house and your water heater's at the far end of your house, and let's say you have a very large house, now you're having to run wires all the way down there? I don't think so.
So those rules come into effect in 2027, is that
Okay,
correct?
well,
Farhad?
we'll wait till then.
How bummed would you be if you built the house the month or
Not
two
new
before?
construction. This is not new construction, it's existing.
But you're touching the panel already in this case. You're already changing out the panel. I hear what you're saying about running the wires.
Yeah.
That's a little different than changing,
But
making sure
that's-
that the
but
panel
that-
that you put in
But that's
is,
what he said you
able.
had to do.
Okay.
You
can
gotta
I-
run the new wire all the way down there by the new by the water heater, just in case that water heater sometimes in the future goes out. So that you're ready for the new electric
but
one.
do you think that if, just take the wiring out of it for a minute. If the person's going in and changing their panel already, wouldn't you want them to have one that's strong enough? Otherwise, a year later, you'd have to replace the panel
You put the
again.
panel in
And I-
there.
And
so
it's not
now
that
Why
much
are
more
they
money.
changing
To
their
have to
panel
go
if they're
down,
not
to have
doing
to
some
go
kind of
down
re-
to the water heater, which is in the other
or
end of the
upgrade?
house, run a conduit
I'm
through the
I'm saying
walls
take the wiring out for a minute.
and the conduit.
Okay. I think the first line where you're when you're service upgrading, panel upgrading, size of panel and service for future all electric home based on, if you're updating your panel, you should be updating it with knowing that all of
Everything's
these,
going electric.
everything's going electric. So I think that first one
Yeah.
makes a huge amount of sense.
Right.
It's
I
a
do too.
no-brainer to me that
Yep.
people need to be prepared for that
On
if
the
they're
next one,
already
though.
updating it. I know, but I'm giving council direction that
Thank
we're
you.
all good with the first line.
Yes, we are all good. with that.
Okay, then
Thank you.
the second one, require branch circuit wiring for a future electric water heater and space heater when they're already doing a panel service upgrade. So I understand in 2027, no one's gonna be able to buy a gas water heater. So I appreciate that that is a good idea. Is there a cost savings for doing it at the time when you update your panel that that's being reflected here? Or is this just a trigger for us to future-proof people?
There's two potential cost savings. One is an extra visit from an electrician versus they'd be already on site performing that panel work. And the second is the cost for getting a rented gas water heater so that you are not without hot water. Waiting 2 weeks to get another electrical permit and then having that electrician come back out. So basically it'd be plug and play when your gas water heater breaks. And that'd be simple.
Well, I don't agree with that.
But again, that's a trigger only when they're upgrading the panel, is that
Yeah.
correct?
If they upgrade the panel, you upgrade the panel, and I have no problem with
Have a
making
question.
sure there's a 220 breaker there. No problem. But having to run the thing to the other end of the house with a conduit and put a plug out there, I disagree with. You're spending money to do things and maybe cutting holes in your wall for no reason at all. Yeah, maybe one day in the future, my water heater may go out and then I have to figure out what I'm gonna go do. But I don't agree with requiring it now, and I don't agree that it would cost me $1,000 or $2,000 here in Atherton.
So I have a question. What triggers, why are you upgrading your panel or service? Ostensibly, because you're doing some kind of a remodel, right?
Mhm.
You're adding,
Well, you might be adding solar panels. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons you could upgrade your panel.
okay. And so to then have to run a conduit for your old gas water heater,
Or maybe water heaters.
Yeah.
at that same time. But we're only 2 years away from the mandatory.
Well, no, the
Oh, it's-
mandatory is you can't sell gas water heaters and you don't know if that's going to,
Even
you don't know what the law is
Okay.
gonna
You
be
also
when that
can't
comes about.
install it.
And maybe you just bought a new water heater. And so-
I'm leaning towards,
I know.
agreeing with you, Bill,
Yeah.
Yeah.
on that.
I
Okay.
think some of that gets
Move on.
captured by the laundry room renovation question.
Uh-huh.
that could-
Two would be a no. The first one was a yes, the second one's a no.
No,
We're
okay.
gonna get into the new
But I have a question on the first one, if we're moving on. It says, then
We're supposed
the building electrical system will be sized to meet the future electrical requirements.
Mhm.
What is that?
Who knows the future?
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a good argument that if you're gonna upgrade your panel, you should upgrade it to handle more, but lots of people have 100 amp panels,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
if they upgrade them, I don't know what the future is. I mean,
I'm not sure it's the future. I think it's the new construction code requirement.
Correct.
Farhan?
Yes, that's right. Thank you. So if they have an existing 100 amp panel, they would likely be upgrading to a 200 amp panel. And that 200 amp panel very likely would already be electric ready in a situation where the electrician feels that, well, to get up to to require the cooktop, the space heater, the water heater, and the clothes dryer to all be 240-volt appliances according to the new construction code, you actually require 250 amps for that. The best time to perform that upgrade is when you're already increasing your panel size from 100 amps. And your next size up would be a 400 amp panel. And that's when that's the nature of this proposal.
and what's the cost difference between a 200 and a 400 amp panel?
Roughly $500 for the materials.
Plus the electrician.
Yeah, but I think
He's already
they're
there.
not doing the labor in any of these costs.
Correct.
Because this is, you're already upgrading
Yes,
your
you're already
panels.
doing
You're
it.
already
Right, and
paying that
he's already
electrician.
there.
It's just
We're
Done.
size
gonna
to
hurry
the
up
top
because
of it.
I'm gonna be leaving.
I just had that
soon.
clarification question.
I've got an appointment I've got to get to, so let's
Let's
try
move
and
on.
hurry up.
Sure. Yeah. How much more time do we have just for my
Well, we're
understanding?
supposed to be done by 6 and it's 6:01.
Keep going.
We'll do this very quickly. Number 3, kitchen.
Feel free to leave. Let the rest of us stay.
Well, the next three are all kind of similar.
That's correct. Yeah, the one we haven't really touched on yet is the last one, but yeah, so if it'd be helpful if we go through each of these rows, yes or no. So right now, row 1, yes. Row 2 was no. Row 3, kitchen renovations. If you're performing a major alteration with an electrical permit in your kitchen, we require 240-volt receptacle at that cooktop. Is that any questions about that?
I say yes.
Well, no, but this doesn't say, well, I'm looking at the staff report. Doesn't say you're creating a major renovation. It says you get an electrical permit for
Right.
something in the kitchen.
And then it says it's determined by the staff, which we don't know who the staff member.
Well, that's
If
all-
there's a minimum, we can do that research and tell you how many permits would exceed that threshold. So if it was a dollar value, for example.
Well, I think that we talked about, just like what we just previously talked about. I mean, if you're doing something in the kitchen that's requiring you to put in a new cooktop, then you have to obviously put in electrical one. Or, but, if you're changing the lighting in your kitchen, I don't see, that's a renovation and you have to get a permit, but I don't see that you now have to go ahead and take your stove out and then get underneath the cabinets and put in a plug for an electrical one.
There's other things than just lights. Somebody could choose to put in an island.
Yeah.
Somebody could reorganize where the refrigerator goes.
So it has to be defined a little bit. We
Yeah.
have to understand what the scope of a kitchen renovation.
And that's where the dollar figure comes in under the exceptions column on the left.
Well, we also
Up to
could add,
$500?
No, on the left, on
Oh, on the
list
left,
of
the
exceptions.
$3,000.
Right.
But we have to make that
But it-
bigger.
it could be, I mean, anything under $50,000 makes no sense.
Well, we said 100.
Well-
100,000.
Well, that's when we were talking about the whole house.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
and we could do permit analysis to see what different types of permits would be captured with 50, with 100, that's something that we could look at. I can also suggest that we can specify if you are running a new circuit for this particular appliance, then it has to be 240 volt.
Yeah, that
Okay,
helps.
that
helps a
makes
Better
lot.
sense.
sense.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it seems to me that, you know, you all have written a model thing and we're trying to force our situation into your model contract, and for me, it's not working.
Well,
So,
we're modifying it,
What
Bill.
we're
I mean, that's why
been
we're
tasked
talking.
with.
Yeah, I mean, let's modify it
Yeah,
and make
that's-
it,
yeah,
you know,
I
work
agree.
for us,
I agree.
okay? So you're gonna
So-
get back to us on
Wait,
that?
so is the consensus if somebody is replacing their cooktop, then they need to make the replacement electric ready if it's not electric?
As part
not
of
if they're-
kitchen
not if they're
renovation.
replacing their
kitchen.
appliance. It's if they're running a circuit to that cooktop.
Yeah, but if they're
To have
touching
the
the
circuit,
electrical
circuit.
if you're
to that
running a
area.
circuit, it should be big enough to eventually handle a two.
If they're running a circuit to the cooktop?
Right, already.
It's gotta be 220. Okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
That's fine.
Yeah.
yeah.
It really does. That makes sense, yeah.
And then the laundry room, if they're putting in a new circuit to their
Yes.
dryer, then they have to make it, but do you have to get a permit to replace a dryer? I don't know.
No.
No.
Uh-uh.
No, but to replace your dryer, you're not touching the circuit to replace a dryer.
Correct.
It's just
So
if you're
we're
putting
talking
in
about if
new-
you're replacing the wires already. So that one little phrase that he added made all of these more clear. and
Yeah.
it
You
made
do
it
that for all
much
three of them.
easier to
Yeah.
do with.
Or at least the two.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
it much easier because it makes total sense then.
Mhm.
So far we have going from top to bottom, yes, no, yes, yes, if we can make those kitchen and laundry a little more specific to the actual specific circuit.
Yes.
Then the last one is the utility room renovations. So this one is particularly important because if you're installing, if you're modifying the utility room, and this would be need to be defined here, but in that situation, this is where your water heater is going to be, where your space, where your currently only gas furnace is going to be, but you may install in the future a air conditioner plus your heat, plus your furnace. In this situation, we want to make sure that there's physical space, condensate drainage, and a refrigerant line going out to, or a space for a refrigerant line to go out to a outdoor unit that would serve for future heat pumps. So I don't know how many we have here between 1 and 30 utility room renovations, how common this might be. But if that's happening, show us the future footprint of that heat pump water heater, the future footprint of your heat pump space heating equipment, the future condensate drainage, so that you don't have to go back in and say, you know, this is not going to fit into my building. at
I
a-
would think that-
Are they smaller? Are these new appliances bigger or are they smaller? Because if you have a big water heater and what the thing you're going to replace it with is the same size or
They're bigger.
smaller, they're
Electric
bigger.
water heaters are bigger because they don't heat as fast, so you need more
We need
water.
a lot more
So the
holding
heat
power.
pumps and all of those
No,
things are
for-
bigger?
For the water, it
It
is. I don't know about
depends.
the space heating.
Mine is smaller. I switched my water heater to a heat pump water heater and it's smaller than my old one because I have the vent outside.
Ah.
So
Interesting.
Okay,
Yeah, I would love to learn more about that particular situation. Generally speaking, and to my knowledge, and the heat pump water heaters will be slightly larger to what council member said because they don't heat as fast. So you might want to bump it up by 15 gallons, and also the compressor is located on top of the tank.
But I'm disturbed by the concept that everyone has a utility room. In my house, I happen to have 3 furnaces. Let's see, I have 3 furnaces and 3 water heaters, and they're all in different places. So
Mhm.
there's not a utility room.
Right.
right,
So,
on the same thing.
and
So we would trigger
if-
for all three or just one?
If somebody's,
one that you're
yeah, if I
touching.
had to replace one, then all of a sudden I'd have to run conduit to all 6. Oh,
So
How
it
do-
has to be
I
contained
would
to the
replace one
one.
and I wouldn't get a permit.
It
How
has
do
to be
we
contained to the
define
one.
utility
That's
room?
exactly right.
Can I ask a question? 'Cause I think that's a good one. How do we define a utility room? Is it like a closet that has a water heater in it, or is it a larger? Because I have a utility room, my water heater.
I
and
do
my-
too.
Is your water heater and
HVAC
space heater in it?
In the same room,
Well,
yeah.
Then
Is
why
that
don't we
how you
say
define
if
it?
someone has a room that both a water heater and a space heater are in, and if, you know, they do whatever it is that triggers this, then they have to make them
Is that how it's?
The ordinance
how's
does
that defined?
define utility room. It defines it as a non-habitable room or building which contains only HVAC, plumbing, or electrical controls or equipment, and which is not a bathroom, not a closet, not a garage, and not a laundry room.
So what that says is a utility room is anywhere that
Dedicated.
there's a space heater and anywhere that there's a water heater.
As long as it's not a
As long
closet,
as it's not a bathroom.
a single room with just that piece of equipment kind of thing, or a single
Right, but
space.
Then, so that would say I have 6 utility rooms.
Oh my gosh.
You could.
you,
I
yeah.
have
Amy.
2 and an
Bye now.
outdoor one.
Bye.
I think this one requires a little more finesse to it.
Yeah.
And so maybe we don't include this one in the reach code.
Yeah, I think right now we should.
Well,
drop
can
that
I,
one out.
can I ask what a utility room renovation is? Is that like if someone's building a new utility room?
Yeah, there's still a lot
Or,
of
like, I
questions
guess-
around that.
Like,
Well,
what is that?
I wouldn't have a problem with that definition if it changed the word or to and. If it's both the water and the space heating, then that probably is a utility room. But if it's anywhere that someone has a water heater,
Yep,
that's a problem.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I think,
Great.
I mean, I think this is an interesting question of future proofing where eventually people are going to be installing these larger devices. So I'm still sticking on what the heck is a utility room renovation? Like if you're building a new, like I'm planning a home renovation, we're going to move our utility room to the other side of the house. So to me, if you're putting in a new utility room,
You're gonna need
you're,
more
you
space.
should be planning for that versus if I'm
Mean.
monkeying around with a closet or something, like
Right.
that's where I'm.
So
sticking on.
maybe, Farhad, what do you think about defining a utility room also by square footage of the space?
What you're doing to it.
Mm,
Well,
mean, if
it's
you're
more
building a
about
new
what you're
one-
doing to it, George. I
Yeah.
mean, again, this
Yeah.
is the same thing. You want to put a light
Yeah.
in it because right now you don't have a light in there.
Yeah, like if you're building a new utility, like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
Closet,
moving one
you don't have
from
a light.
one side of the house to the other.
Right,
And
right.
so I should be future-proofing this new
And
utility room during my home renovation.
Will you have both space heating and water heating in it?
Yeah,
So I think
Probably,
that
that's what I-
addresses it.
then that's a renovation because it's an existing structure versus if I'm,
Well, I think we're talking two different things. I think Councilmember DeGoli is talking about that the definition of what a utility room is. It's got to include both of those items in it, water heater and gas heating.
And let me
And
just,
then if you're renovating it, what does that renovation entail, which is your question?
I think we're defining two things. And I
That's
think
just-
if you are building a new place, if you're renovating your home and you're moving your water heater from one side of your house to the other side of the house, where you're building a new enclosure for your water heater, you should be future-proofing that new utility room renovation to fit.
So it's not a
To be-
renovation. A
but that is-
renovation
I'm
is.
it
renovating.
is a
It
renovation.
is a renovation.
This is a
No,
I'm
it's
renovation.
new. It's new
No, it's
construction.
No, no, no,
not.
that's a renovation.
It's still
It's a
renovation.
Renovation.
My house is an
Building a new
example. I'm gonna
house.
move
Yeah.
mine from one side of my
Right.
house.
Of course.
To another
yeah.
one. She's
So-
building a new one.
Right, but it's within an existing structure, so it
Well,
falls under the renovation.
Bill,
category.
in a technical way, yes,
Yes,
but
it's
she's
new.
not building a new house.
Right.
I know
She's
she's not
renovating
building a
an
new house.
I
existing
think the
house. and yet-
definition of
okay,
new
so, you
construction
know.
is a new house,
got it.
right?
Right, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, like, I feel like there's nuance on both defining utility room and defining
Right.
what a renovation is, because if you're building a new utility room as part of renovation, then yes.
Yeah.
So
should
you
be
can define it that way, a new utility room, or utility room renovation is the
Yeah,
construction or renovation of a
Yeah.
new space into a utility room.
yes, versus if you're putting in a light in a water closet, water
Putting
heater
in a
closet.
sink or putting in a sink in the utility.
Right, but like,
Okay.
but we, you know.
Well,
I just
yeah.
think if you're-
And sometimes you might want to put your data rack in there, you know,
How about
also.
construction of or renovation of
Yeah.
an
Make it a
existing
home run
space
room
into
for your
your,
data.
into a utility room that involves
Mine
the
is.
relocation
too.
of,
And you need some
equipment.
space
That's in a
in there.
different space.
All right.
So I have 7.
Okay.
that involves the construction, the relocation of equipment.
Yeah, I just think if you're moving your water heater or your HVAC system as part of a renovation, those structures, whether or not they include one or the other, should be future-proofing against whatever they will need eventually. If they're
That's
making it-
the definition of it. Now, one last thing, Farhad, do those exceptions on the left overlay those 5 things on the right?
So that's a great question. The intent was, it's not an overlay, but it is implicit in the triggers, right? So if you look at the triggers, it's if you're upgrading your service, if you're performing a renovation in your kitchen or your laundry room and it's pulling an electrical permit. Those types of things are not standalone equipment replacements,
Right.
already require an electrical permit. So by definition of the trigger, they are being exempted.
Okay, and then the threshold for cost, was it really applicable to the kitchen renovation? But I think we solved that because it's the appliance.
I think we can look at it both ways. I'm not aware of much precedence around cooktop specific circuits. I'll need to research that, but that's certainly something we can try to add in. I'd like to make sure that it's enforceable.
Right.
If that's not enforceable, then yeah, we can set a cost threshold. But it sounds like there was broad consensus around specific circuits for specific appliances, and that
Right.
makes sense.
Yes, if you're touching the circuit.
Okay,
Yeah, it makes more
Because it's
sense.
so hard to put a number on it.
Yeah, it's arbitrary
okay.
when you're touching the circuit.
I think we have some direction. Farhad, you got enough direction on your end as well?
Thank you so much, Council. Yes, that was wonderful.
Move
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Thank you.
It's a
We
move
did
to
it,
adjourn.
guys. It was
Thank you,
ugly, but we
Steve.